Hello, friends, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Trek Talk. Okay, first off, it has been such a long time since I've had a Trek discussion, and it's been an even longer time since I've had somebody actually with me on the show. Um, as everybody here knows, William is where it's at when it comes to Star Trek. Uh, I love his takes on Star Trek. You know, they mirror mine in so many ways. But no, this is something that's been in the works for a long time. We've been trying to, touch base and get, it's been a thought for a while. So I'm really glad to actually be here and do this with you. Welcome, William. How you doing, man?
Thank you for having me. Finally get a chance to
Oh,
talk something that is not the usual topics that won't be named or mentioned.
thank you.
So,
I like to keep this channel as my little, you know, sanctuary, I guess is the best way to
yeah,
put it.
the place you can run when it gets hot everywhere else.
Exactly. And it got kind of warm today.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's say hello to the chat, and then we'll get to it.
Hi, chat.
Hey, all right, we got that dude Vince. What is going on, man? I'm glad to have you here. I know you're a huge Star Trek fan, and I hope we will not disappoint. Integrity 101, restore the Trek verse. You know what? I can get behind that because my next comment is if okay. So did you ever watch the documentary they did?
Yeah, what you left behind or what's left behind? Is that the one
Yeah,
you're talking
what we left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they basically pitched that 8th season of Deep Space Nine. Yeah, like sign me up. I'm there. Like,
I
let's
mean,
do it.
sadly, we're missing one of the most important characters because of
True,
this. But
true.
you know what? CGI and his character was primarily CGI for the aside from makeup, so you could bring Odo back. There's a lot of story to tell with the DS9 because the one thing I did not like about DS9 um, is where Cisco ended up. I know the prophets were
Yeah,
the thing, but
yeah.
I did not like the prophets. I did not like the prophets' place in the whole mythology. I like once it got to the war. Once we got to midway through the third season, and you knew there was a war coming, and I completely understood now that that's what the whole show was setting up for. Then I started to appreciate because the introduction of Odo's his character to begin with at all was a prelude to the Founders. So there's a lot of story to tell. Like Kira, what happened with Worf during that period of time. I know we know he
Went
ends
off
up
with Martog and
yeah.
the High
But you
Council
also
and
know that he
stuff.
comes back by Nemesis and everything else, because that show ended in '99, and then Nemesis in 2001, and he's the tactical officer there.
Yeah.
So there's also things like shows like this allow me to flesh out my. I get a question all the time because when we had our uniforms here, and I got to get them back in, Tuvok's official rank. Those are things like that, and people are like, "Well, Tuvok's a lieutenant commander when you first see him, and then he's a lieutenant, and they call him this, they call him that." And I thought out explanations for that, and the fact that they were exactly right in their portrayal of his rank. There's all kinds of just stuff that bounces around in my head. So, especially with Trek.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but since the movies, a lot of it's been tied to like naval nomenclature. So, the ranks are damn near the same as far as, uh, in Starfleet as opposed to the others. Let's see here. We'll just get through this really quick. Josh, hey man, what's going on, dude? What's going on? Old Trek fan crapping his diaper. Best line of 2001.
Oh wow, somebody remembers things I say. I guess they're on video. So yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Nah,
Cool.
you are loved in this chat, my friend. Let's see here. TW, how's it going, buddy? Always a pleasure. Hey man, I love breaking this thing out for special occasions, and this
Yeah,
is
I'll be
one.
next time we do it. I'll have one. I thought I had one that bit me here that I left here when we moved out the other ones because we switched to different vendors. I thought I had a Wrath of Khan one, and I was gonna wear the full on Wrath of Khan. I ordered it. I ordered another one today. So
That's
hopefully
actually one of my favorites next to this one.
yeah. Yeah, I had
Like,
the Admiral. I had Admiral everything. I had Kirk. It was Kirk's actual one with the gold piping, and I had the undershirt properly with the ribs, and then
yeah.
I had the belt buckle. The belt buckle was hard to get, and the communicator, not the communicator pin, but the Starfleet badge area
Yeah.
was hard to get because they just don't make them anymore. When the experience was out here in Vegas, I could always go out and get whatever I need sometimes. And then finally, I just got wholesalers. But some of these wholesalers since COVID have gone out of business because the shipping overseas, like hasn't been good. So I've had to contacts. We sell them, and then usually I would replace one. And now it's kind of hard to replace them now. So
yeah,
I'll be wearing a uniform. In fact, what I want to do is if we do this on a semi-regular basis, every time have a different era uniform. Because I have them coming in to where we'll have from the original series era, one from the Admiral Kirk's era from the motion picture, obviously the Wrath of Khan era, and then the shows all the way up to Picard's, because you can get Picard's Admiral uniform too, which I don't think is enough.
I kind of dig that style of uniform though from the show Picard. How they did the uniforms 20, 30 years later. Yeah, that's really nice. Josh, no problem, dude. I can't wait to be over there, buddy. It'll be fun. And that dude Vince asks, does your store ship, William?
It depends on where in the dimensions, because sometimes if it's still a hard place to get to, the cost of the shipping negates any discount I could give to you. And then it would just be break even, or I would lose. So it depends.
Yeah.
Like Arizona, California, places like that are really easy to get to. But like sometimes, like we used to ship a lot overseas. But the price,
of course, man. Tariffs are kick ass,
and it has to be lightweight too. Like uniforms, we can ship. Uniforms are not a problem because we get them from overseas. So I think we would be fine. It depends on what you want. I guess we ship a ton of buttons. I get requests for buttons all the time. We have buttons here that we can put in a little bag, and then anywhere in the U.S., if it fits, it ships type of deal. If you get like a standard. Hold on for a second. Let me show you.
He says he's in Missouri.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Like this is a FedEx one, but the U.S. Postal Service is who we use. And usually if it fits in here, it's a standard flat shipping rate.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of times we can calculate that. So it all depends. So
cool. But yeah, throw a couple comic books in there.
Yeah, you can put comic books are easy. Only thing about comic books is you got to make sure that they're packaged properly. So that when they get there, because your mail goes to a lot of stuff when it goes in there, and you want to make sure that if it's pictures or anything like that you package it, you styrofoam it, you make sure so that when you get it, you don't get a picture from your customer saying this is what I got in the mail.
Right.
Because we get our comics every week, and there's like every week I get them. There's 3 or 4 comics I have to set off to the side and get credit for, because of the way UPS plays football with my stuff. I'm in Florida. Yeah, it's right now what I'm doing is I'm getting everything completely set up for a virtual, and then it'll be like a virtual map. And what I'm trying to do, I'm working with a programmer so that when you can use your mouse, you can basically take a tour of the store, and certain items will be so that you can run your mouse over there and click. So say if there's a picture when we do the switch around, I'll show you. If there's a picture or a poster on the wall, you can click on that poster and it'll lead you directly to the online store. So I will constantly have to update things like that. So I don't want you clicking on something. But if you click on something that's not there, it'll tell you it's sold out. But I want to make it to where we can do a slow pan of the entire store. If you see a uniform you want, you can literally click on that uniform, stop the camera, click on the uniform, and then we send it out that way. We're recovering from the pandemic, but travel is still hard. The pandemic has taken a toll on manpower when it comes to travel and being able to get people from one place. A lot of canceled flights out here. So this is something that we were going to eventually have to do anyway. Almost everything in society that is happening now because of COVID was going to happen anyway. It just got expedited because of COVID. So we're just doing something that would eventually have to happen. So yeah, if you're in Florida, I want you to be able to come out here and experience it. But if you can't, then we got this thing that Al Gore invented back in the 90s called the internet. And we'll use that,
Heck yeah. Oh man. 2000 election jokes. They're the best. That was when I was taking my civics class my senior year in high school. So like half of the class was for Bush and half of the class was for Gore. It was
Yeah, and
what
that's
a way.
pretty much how the country broke down then. I mean, it was like several. It was several. It was like 300 votes. 300 votes is what it all came down to. But
you,
well,
you got it, Lewis. Yes, exactly. Ugh, new Trek, really? Like new metal? Oh God. Hey, I kind of like
what
new
is new
metal.
metal? What's considered new metal?
Okay, so new metal is that stuff like remember Korn,
Oh, the rap rock stuff.
Limp Bizkit, yeah, Linkin Park. That's kind of like the big.
Uh, I didn't prefer that stuff because if there's no, here's the thing, if there's no guitar solo, it's not heavy metal. That's my rules.
This is true. This is also
If
true.
there's no guitar solo, then it's not. It's barely rock for me, but it's damn sure not metal. If there's no, breaking out into, now somebody may perceive something as metal, but from what I understand, the technical definition for metal, you got to have a guitar solo, man. I mean, something.
No. This is rules.
Yeah.
Metalcore is the new metal. Let's see here. Don't leave Brian hanging, people. Yeah, smash the hell out of the like button. Share this out to your friends, guys. We're not talking about the usual stuff tonight. We're talking about Star
Yeah,
Trek.
this is a safe zone. This is you can actually rewatch this, and it's not bringing
No, it won't make you angry.
yeah.
Let's
Now
see.
2021 Halloween did. That made me angry.
Yeah, right.
That's a different stream.
Well, you had like a shindig set up, right? Like
Yeah, we went with Bradley and Austin, and we promoted that movie. And
oh yeah, Halloween. Oof.
we went in there, and it was offensively horrible. It was really bad, and like I said, it was a waste of time for me. So it like when movies waste of time, like I took an extra day off to make it so I could go see that movie, and halfway through it, I'm like, I want that time back, and I will never get that hour and a half or whatever the hell that movie took from me. But I rarely went into that with Star Trek movies, though. So I mean, there's certain movies that I just don't like. I don't like Insurrection. I thought what was the last one? Nemesis.
Yeah, Nemesis of the Next Generation ones.
Nemesis never really captured. Once they did First Contact, that was it. Because I did not like Generations. Generations. Yeah. But First Contact set the standards for whatever movie, and they never met that. They came out with Insurrection 3 years later, and then 2 years later after that, it was just basically getting a band together again without really any substance. So,
hey RJ,
what's up? It's been a tough go at movies. Like I said, people may not J.J. Abrams, however much you want to. Without J.J. Abrams, we don't have new Trek.
Oh, absolutely. It would have been, relegated.
It was dying a very painful death, and like I said, old Trek fan. You know that Reaper that they show going from one door to another, with taking off whatever, and then they knock, that's what old Trek was for Star Trek. It was just, you couldn't enjoy it, and it was on a network, UPN, which doesn't exist anymore as a single network. It's a CW now.
Mm-hmm.
But the network didn't have the balls to stand up and say, this is what the story we're going to tell. If you don't like it, go away. J.J. Abrams did. J.J. Abrams had the credibility to basically tell old Trek fan, I would love to have you on this raft, but if you want to go swim out there with the sharks while we move ahead to the ship, then you can do that too. He basically dared them not to watch it, and they all watched it. And then they all thought, we're going to boycott this. This isn't blah, blah, this isn't this. And they all were there because I was in there with them. They were pouting and complaining, but you look over there, they're enjoying it. They won't ever let you know it.
Right.
That's what old Trek fan is. An old Trek fan, he's got to adhere to the Bible of Roddenberry. But even Roddenberry said this is fluid.
Oh, absolutely. Vince, yes, dude. Generations, Insurrection, and Nemesis felt like 2-part episodes rather than movies.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have rather. Okay, now I know that the same two writers wrote that episode, Ron Moore and Brandon Braga. They were the same two dudes that wrote Generations and First Contact. The problem with Generations is that they weren't originally slotted to write that, and they rushed it like way too much. I would have rather, as a next gen fan, All Good Things been their first movie. Like that
Yeah, that's
is
what the length. Yeah.
that is like hands down one of the best season or series finales in all Star Trek. Like,
Give me a couple of seconds. I got to turn something off that's going to interfere if I don't. Hold on.
oh, no worries. Let's see here. I'll run through the chat. Let's see here. Yeah, dude, the Next Generation cast, absolutely. They're kind of getting it now. I'm hoping to see more cameos in Picard, honestly. Getting Q back is one. Riker and Troy in the first season, that was amazing. Riker, the pizza chef, the outdoor pizza chef. That was one of my that kind of brought a tear to my eye. I get real nostalgic about that sort of things. Yeah, dude, Nemesis, dude, they try it. Okay, this is one thing about Star Trek movies that irritate me. They always try to recreate what's come before, which is and was successful. Dude, Nemesis was Wrath of Khan, just with different players. Let's see here. Oh, dude, the motion picture is still awesome. Like, I'll tell you right now, man. Just get super stoned and like put Ilea's theme on with just the starscape, and it's like Jerry Goldsmith, fantastic score. Just there's nothing you can say about Jerry Goldsmith. Like, he gave us the motion picture theme, which became the Next Generation theme. Oh man, and then he did the music to First Contact, best soundtrack. Zeno, hey man, what's going on? Welcome, man. Here to talk some Star Trek. It's going to be fantastic. Let's see. The Coven movies are where Star Trek Online started. Yes, I agree. And I'm grateful for Star Trek Online. I played it back in 2009. I love it because it continued the Next Generation story a little bit, but it also incorporated the destruction of Romulus, and that whole system in the game is just totally wiped out. So, and I mean,
Yeah.
I like how they did that, you know, and they said that this is our sandbox, but that sandbox still exists and it's still there, and we're not messing with it. Like,
Yeah, it's inclusion. It's inclusion, which is they've done a better job about it. And beyond, and to, like I said, you're always seeing me bring up Old Trek fan and how he pretty much choked the life and made the eyeballs of Star Trek shoot out of his skull. But if you look at the fandom now, it's better than it has been because I can see it now. Because I look at all these shows, there are drastically different Treks on the air right now. I haven't watched Prodigy, but I'm going to.
oh man,
I
they
think
did.
Lower Decks. I tried Lower Decks. I hate it. But
Mhm.
here's my attitude about it now. And we didn't have this kind of attitude 12, 15 years ago. If that is your window into Star Trek, have at it.
Right?
12, 15 years ago, it would have been like, we hate that. We need it destroyed. Now we went so long without having any Trek on TV. People understand we need all the Trek fans we can get. And
Right.
even if it's not Trek that I can watch, because like I said, Lower Decks is like not for me. But if you like it, great. Eventually, you'll get around to some of the stuff I like, and we can have a mutual conversation. But it's not as bad as it was before, and it took about. I think it started with the Kelvin movies, thawing things out and bringing people on. You know, bringing old Trek fan and having them put down his torch or her torch, and embracing a new generation that really liked Trek because it reminded them what they were when they first came on the Trek. So now people still they still I like Robert Meyer Burnett, who I respect the hell out of.
Yeah, but he's old Trek fan though.
Yeah, he's the old Trek fan. He can really he can really lay it down. And that's one of the few things whenever I see his show and I see the little postscript and I know he's about to destroy Modern Trek, I'm like, I can't do it today, man. I watched Modern Trek get destroyed. Enterprise was ruined. That was not what you were supposed to get with Enterprise. The Xindi was not what you were supposed to get.
No.
That if I ever get my hands, and if I were to just like make a wish, and I'm the people running Star Trek right now, that temporal Cold War, we're gonna fix that.
Yeah.
We're going to restore that temporal Cold War storyline, and we're going to unify it with yesterday's Enterprise, the attack on Kittimar. All that for me would be, remember the guy in the shadows that we never got to see?
True.
To me, that's a Romulan. And remember the first episode of Enterprise, Broken Bro, was him being chased. And that blood sample, to me, this is how they should have done it. And they eventually gave you some half-assed story of how the Klingons got their flatheads. That wasn't what they were planning. I am thinking that they were planning that the Romulan from the future was co-opting the Klingons from that era, but there's a certain hierarchy of Klingons from that era, and they were biologically testing them to make them the elite hierarchy of the Klingon species that would rule over the Ridgehead. Because when you first see the Klingons in Star Trek lore, it's the flat-headed Klingons. But the way I would write that in is because you wouldn't see any of the lower guys. The lower guys are down there getting their heads kicked in. And then basically when Worf says we don't talk about that anymore, but because a certain segment of Klingons sold out to the Romulan experimentation so that they could rule all the houses. And that's how I would do it. And Worf's dad, remember how he was a traitor and they had to clear his name? All that would be linked because all throughout those time, including yesterday's Enterprise, that battle, all that would be linked. And the reason being is because the Romulan would want to corrupt the Klingon Federation alliance, because with that alliance in place, that the Romulans would never be able to take the Alpha Quadrant. They just would never be. It just wasn't possible. And that's why the Romulan in that shadow that we never got to meet would be so far in the future. He knows, he sees Navarre, he sees all this stuff, and he's a hardcore right-wing Romulan. He doesn't want any of this stuff. And so that's where all this would come out. And I wish they would fix that. And they could do it. They could link everybody still, for the most part, alive now. And if not, you can CGI them younger. I would like to see yesterday's Enterprise revisited. I would like to see Broken Bow and give Enterprise a proper ending. Yeah. Because remember that we were supposed to end that show with the Romulan Earth War. Yeah. So we never got that. But we didn't get that because Old Trek fan made sure that he put the pillow over the face of that potential and made sure it was dead. And then then at that time they changed. We were never supposed to get the Xindi. The Xindi was a joke. That whole thing with the Xindi was stupid, and it lasted years. So
well, and see, you bring up a good point about the JJ movies though, because the JJ movies brought like people that never really were into Star Trek into it, and it was really cool because the person that I went with was like that. But the old Trek fan inside of me, because there's an old Trek fan inside of all of us that is like, okay. So when I saw Star Trek Into Darkness, and everybody was like, oh, it's John Harrison. This is the last time I avoided. This is when I learned not to trust movie scoops, trekmovie.com, you bastards. Oh yeah. But no, when he's like, I am Khan, I was just like, oh no, you did it. But when Chekhov started running, or not Chekhov, but when Kirk started running down to engineering, I was like, no, they're not going to do that. No, they're not going to do that.
You know why they should have done that? You know why they did exactly what they were supposed to do? It makes sense. When you think of okay, they altered time, but no matter what time, that's the same thing with No Way Home and all those alternate universes. Certain things are going to happen no matter what, period. True. They're always going to be, you were always going to find Botany Bay. You were just going to find it in a different way. Certain people are always going to meet certain people. So it's logical that Kirk and all that would happen in some way, because those are still the same people on the same trajectory, meeting the same protagonists. Yeah. So I on the one side I can understand where people were like, "Oh, they're just copying Wrath of Khan," but I'm like, no, Wrath of Khan happened. It just happened here differently. It's like Terminator. True. Terminator, during the way the time works in Terminator, Judgment Day was always going to happen. It's just that because the machines kept sending the Terminator back in time, Skynet was created sooner because he found the technology sooner. But it was always going to happen because the general, the dynamic guy, the 3-star, he was always going to create Skynet no matter what. It just happened sooner because of the chip that was found. So these things certain things are just destined to happen. Kirk is destined to meet Spock. Even old Spock knew that. Khan was destined to interact with the Enterprise in some way. So all of these things were happening just as they would. It's just the only mitigating factor was the alternate timeline. The timeline that we were in with the Kelvin came about in a different way, a different way than the one that we know, and that's your thing there. So it made sense when you think about it, when you think of linear time and just fate, no matter what. So if the Botany Bay was floating out there and the Enterprise was the ship that could go the deepest and furthest, then it was bound to be them that find and then so on and so on. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, it just happened differently. Voyager was the best Star Trek show from year 1 to 7. It had in my opinion, it had the best character development.
Consistent, yeah.
Yeah, it had the best Vulcan.
True. Tuvok was awesome.
Yeah, it had the best. It had the best interaction and had the best character growth. There's an episode one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. Period is when the Doctor has to decide why there's 2 ensigns down on the ground and he saves Harry because he considers him his friend, but that's not why he did it. But he feels guilty because he saved his friend and the other ensign dies. So that Janeway keeps going into his programming because it's causing deterioration. And he can't remember why. Your destroyer is from his point of view. So he doesn't know why he can't remember certain things. And then finally he figures it out. And it's Janeway making it because he can't handle it. Finally, 7 of 9, who I thought was a great introduction to that show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not just because of her looks, because of her acting ability.
She was amazing. Like, just what she did. Her growth as a character throughout her time on the show.
Yeah, it was great. 4 years. She had 4 years out of the 7. But when she goes to Janeway and says, isn't it part of his evolution to be able to deal with grief and death just like all of us? Why are we taking it away from him when that's part of his thing? And finally, they let him deal with it, and he had to deal with this overwhelming grip. And they remember they sat and they read to him. Yeah, and it was cool. And the other one was Tuvix, because Tuvix it split the crew up, and nobody technically what she did was against Starfleet protocol, but it was part of protocol because you're not supposed. If you have a new life form, you're not supposed to kill a new life form. For personal preferences, but at the same time, she's got to save her. She's got to save her crew. Do I have the Batgirl shirt and
3X? Hey Joe, how's it going, man?
No, I have to get you 1X. I can get it though. I'm going to probably get more now that the costume reveal is happening, and that's the color scheme that they've gone with. So I probably have more. I actually got that one by accident. I ordered the Batman one, and the vendor sent me the wrong one. So I decided I ordered the Dark Knight Batman one, and I don't know what the breakdown was. So, but I can get it. I can get it in a 3X. I'll get with you offline on that, Joe.
Awesome, and we'll have to get Joe on here one of these days too, because he's a huge Star Trek fan as well.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. We never get a chance to hit on those things. We're always going to the mattresses on those other things. So yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, the more Trekkers or Trekkies, depending on what generation you're from, possible. But yeah, Voyager was the best show.
We have a different disagreement. The Xindi arc was the best season of Enterprise. Well, I think that wasn't it because 9/11 though? Like that whole they kind of had a scramble there.
Well, no, what ended up happening is everybody's got their different stories on this. And this is one of the things that because we were working with the local UPN thing here, and we actually had a theater full of people to see the first episode. Wow. September 26, 2001. I remember that because it was 3 weeks after September 11th. And we were all trying to get back to normal. What happened with the Xindi arc, as far as I know, is that what they were going to do was going to have, like what I explained, was going to have drastic ramifications on everything that you knew Trek. You were going to get an explanation of the ridged heads. You were going to get why did the Romulans have a cloaking device during that time period? How did they get that? And you would have had to explain you would have had to explain so many things that old Trek fan was not going to let go. That was to them at the time. And remember, this is back in 2002, 2003. It would have been like the same thing as burning a Bible for them. They were reacting. I remember the letter campaign going into the to the theaters. I remember people just completely blowing up. I'd be at the experience talking to people at the bar, and but yeah, because Joe, it was never meant to happen. That Xindi arc, what was supposed to happen was the temporal Cold War. The whole purpose of Star Trek Enterprise was the temporal Cold War. That was it. Just like the purpose of DS9, even though the first 2 or 3 seasons don't necessarily explicitly say that, was the Dominion War. That was why that series was made. All right, but the entire purpose of Enterprise was the temporal Cold War. They stated from episode 1, when Jennings comes back there with his Enterprise F, or whatever the hell that is, what they had to do is put things in place of that. Because remember, it's not like today where we have streaming and we have powerful networks. UPN was a fledgling network, and it was going up against some powerful networks. And they were afraid that if they didn't follow old Trek fan down the rabbit hole, that they would lose a majority of their audience.
True.
So they bent, and they came up with the Xindi story arc on its own wasn't bad. The Xindi story arc in place of what was supposed to be there, that's what makes it bad.
Yeah. It's like you were expecting one story, but you get told another.
Yeah, and you never resolved that story. And like I said,
it's in the mails,
Yeah, it's coming out. Trust me, you're gonna see me every time you see me doing this again. I will have one version of a uniform from each different Trek era, and I'll actually start in order. So the next time you see me, I'll have a Kirk era or TOS, the original series era suit, and then the next week I'll have one from the motion picture, and then Wrath of Khan, and then we'll go into all the different various uniforms for Next Generation, including the one you're wearing now. I got a different version of it. The one that's really hard to ship because it has that crushed felt and that shit. But I have all that. I had the Admiral Paris one at one time with the belt buckle with the Starfleet logo. So
I like that one.
Yeah, and I like this because they introduced the uniforms you're wearing in First Contact. That was the first time when we saw them ever. They introduced them in DS9 during an episode called The Rapture. That's where you first saw them on DS9, and they were the uniforms all the way throughout. The Nemesis, because they were war uniforms. The fact that you were wearing these uniforms, everything that you saw in Star Trek that was wearing those uniforms was dealing with a conflict.
True.
Obviously the crew of the Enterprise was dealing with the Borg. That's when you first saw them, and then obviously the DS9 were dealing with a war, and it was the subdued. It was supposed to go along with the storyline, so that you had the colorful stuff under the collar, but you were wearing a uniformed gray. This was a dark period. We weren't making light of this. Yeah. It was basically trying to format 24, which was popular at the time. Oh, is he talking about the Xindi?
Yeah.
Like I said, not a bad storyline unto itself, but if you knew all the stuff that was going behind the scenes and why that I love Discovery too, why that story happened, that's what makes it hard.
Tuvok was too cranky.
Tuvok wasn't cranky. You got to realize he's stuck on a ship with no other. He had one other Vulcan on there, and that was that Ensign Vorak, and that guy had issues. He didn't have.
He was a Maquis, right?
Yeah, no, he was. Was he? He might have been. Yeah, I know. He tried to go Pompar with Torres and almost got his ass kicked. I liked Tuvok simply because he is the basic. The Vulcans are grumpy. See, we look at Vulcan heritage through Spock without realizing that Spock is half Vulcan. Tuvok is a full-blooded Vulcan, and he has those Vulcan tendencies that, whereas Spock has tendencies that would every now and then, bring out the human in him. They did it in the Kelvinverse, and they did it in certain times of the thing. He would remind you, I'm only half human or half of a Vulcan.
What? Didn't know Tom Paris? Captain Proton is not enough for you, man? Like, oh, dude.
I love Tom Paris.
The holodeck stuff that Tom Paris and Harry Kim got into in that show was just amazing. Like,
yeah. My favorite thing about Tom Paris is his relationship to Harry Kim and how that evolved. he got, I mean, from episode 1 where he's like, "Don't follow me, I'm a bad apple," to the point where he's willing to risk everything for Harry Kim. I mean, Harry Kim is like, he's not going to let anything happen to Harry Kim.
They're brothers by the end of it. Like that was
pretty much. And then there was Chakotay being a hardcore marquee guy, but still having enough Starfleet in him to understand things. I liked Torres. Torres evolved. They all evolved better than anything. Anything that I found a lot of interviews crew bland.
Charles Tucker III. Come on, man. I love Trip. Okay, like I was so pissed when he died. I was just like,
yeah, and that wasn't supposed to happen. That ending of Enterprise, that last episode, somebody right now as we speak should be doing time for that.
Oh yeah,
there should be somebody having a parole hearing whether they get out or not because of that. And like I said, if I had a chance, I'm going to take that timeline. I'm going to use Discovery. I'm going to use all the modern day Star Trek tools at my disposal, and we're going to unite that timeline, and we're going to fight that temporal war, and when we're going to give Enterprise a proper ending that people can live with, because Enterprise was such a mixed bag because they were being pulled and tugged from so many different directions, and it was sad to see the fandom in the early 2000s. Being a Star Trek fan was not, to me, in the early 2000s wasn't a good thing.
It was hard.
Yeah,
I kind of checked out there for a minute. Like I watched the first episode of Enterprise, and I was like, "It's been a long road." I was like,
"That song was." I was hoping that they had a song by The Calling. When we were doing the promotion for that, there was a song by The Calling, "Wherever You Go," and every time when they sent us the trailer for that was the song. We thought that was going to be the thing, and then they gave you this slow. There were issues with
Oh, absolutely. No, it was definitely influenced by 9/11 because it was a terror attack in Florida. The Xindi like shot that weapon down, went the spheres. Oh, geez.
But if they hadn't been dealing with the war with their own fandom, the Xindi, regardless of 9/11, I just think doesn't happen. But it just meant an upheaval of everything old Trek fan knew. You can't do that. They don't have the cloaking device. How do they have cloaking minds in Enterprise era? Well, if you let them tell the story, and this is where, with that other thing we were not going to bring up, but it all comes back to letting the people at the helm of the story tell their story and letting it see it through the end. And that's something that Star Trek fans in the early 2000s just were not going to do. And it became toxic to the point where, okay, canceled. What's the problem is the Enterprise get canceled. The writers took a break from the temporal Cold War.
Well, they also had the writers' strike took place during that time too.
Well, what you had was, because remember, it started before that. I know what he's talking about, but it started before that because remember when the Klingon, it got really on fire when the Romulans first appeared, and they had cloaking devices and they had cloaking minds, and people were like, "That's not canon. Where's my Bible? Get our torches." Instead of letting them tell that storyline, they just put those flamethrowers on the network. And like I said, UPN wasn't a very strong network. It wasn't even carried here in Vegas until 1998. The first year, because of the...
That explains it.
Yeah, because I had to watch... Then. Yeah, I had to watch the episodes on the CW after they went into syndication, because they eventually merged the CW, or it was the WB network at the time. They merged WB and UPN, and that's how you got CW. So all the programming that you got on UPN ended up on CW.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, they were the people. So we couldn't get it here in Vegas because not every network in the nation carried the channel. So that was another thing that really hurt it. So they didn't have a lot of legs to stand on fighting toxic fandom. They didn't say, why are we going to invest into this if we're just going to be dealing with a bunch of torchbearers, and they kind of gave up on the show.
Well, absolutely. And that's another thing that pissed me off about people bitching about New Trek. It's like, it's just minutia. Like, are we going to sit there and talk about a show that would go episode to episode and be like, oh, there's continuity errors? It's like,
yeah. And a lot of the things about Trek back in that era was, remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember how much they hated Brannon Braga and Berman.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, they hated those guys, and I'm like, without those two men, Next Generation is done because
Done.
they had to take it away from Roddenberry at a time because Roddenberry wasn't.
Eh,
Yeah, he
it
wasn't
wasn't
all
all
there.
there.
Yeah, he was a great creator, and we're grateful to him. But they needed to take him off the project because he helped
Yeah.
develop Next Generation, but he just wasn't. He wasn't that type of movie maker or that type of a showrunner. And Braga and Berman,
They called them the Killer Bees.
yeah, the Killer Bees, exactly. They had shirts and stuff with me.
Oh,
Before there were
Jesus.
memes, there was a little but people didn't realize that if it wasn't for the best of both worlds, I don't know where Star Trek: The Next Generation would have been because not a lot of people were watching that show.
True.
It actually got, and I thought it was canceled, but when it moved networks here in LA where I was living, it was because they had sold it into syndication. If they didn't own that network that they were doing that with, I don't think half the nation would have ever seen seasons 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Star Trek because a lot of people were watching it. But the Borg is what got that show going. Best of both worlds was what got that, the word of mouth. I remember going to school because I was a sophomore in high school. People who did not that picked on me for liking Star Trek, just like, oh, you're a nerd. What do this? Because they were watching it because at the time it was on Sunday nights, prime time. So everybody was a family show. So they were talking about, did you see what happened to Picard? I'm like, dude, you didn't even know what a Picard was on Friday. You watched the show on Sunday and you come back to me and now you're an expert. And I'm like, cool, let's talk Trek, But I couldn't find a Trek fan in 1990. I could not find one.
Couldn't find him in 96 when First Contact came out. 2000, like it was really difficult. It wasn't until the JJ movies were like normal people were like, hey, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, they made it cool. They took away the cheesiness, the glare screen people didn't like, but I'm like, dude, I loved it. I loved everything about that movie. I did like the design of the ship. I thought I never was a fan of the way they kind of made it look like a Corvette. But I like the uniforms. I like the fact that Spock, the way they did Spock, they showed him to his true nature when he's about to beat the hell out of Kirk. And does that move? I was on the edge of my chair where he's like, "You never loved that." And he's just picking his bones because old Spock had told him, "I know if I just lost my family, I'm compromised," and so that Spock knew himself. And I really love that interaction. The beginning of it, where the Romulan ship,
absolutely,
it was just really
hats off to Eric Bana. Let's see, Star Trek V really helped the Next Generation. Star Trek V opened around the same time as Best of Both Worlds Part 1, and for the first time, Next Gen put something out better than the original.
Well, the problem with Star Trek V, at the time, it was considered one of the worst Star Trek movies ever made. Remember the God in the middle of the galaxy and all that. It was
what does God need with a starship?
Yeah, and that came out in '89. Best of Both Worlds, I believe. This was Best of Both Worlds '89 or '90.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think Best of Both Worlds was '90, but I could be 100% wrong. Hold on,
fact checkers.
Okay, let's see. Because I know it was the season. It was a cliffhanger for. All right, it was the 26th episode of the 3rd season. Wow, it was that early, 1990. Yeah, so it wasn't. I guess you could say a Trek movie could theoretically have helped it, but it wasn't a very good movie. It was a horrible movie. They had a I've like tried to drive that movie into the center of my brain so I don't remember it. Because right afterwards, Star Trek 6 was one of the best ones. I mean, they couldn't move around anymore because they were all really, really old. I mean, DeForest Kelley died literally 4 years later. Rest in peace. But they were older. They were in their 50s and 60s. Doing this show or doing this movie. And I thought the Star Trek 6 was great. And
I think they got a proper send off.
Yeah, remember at the end where they were doing all their signatures because they knew that was it. They knew that there was not going to be another movie for them. And Christopher Plummer as Kang. He's reciting Shakespeare.
Oh God, yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Christopher Plummer nailed it.
Yeah, that line where you haven't seen or enjoyed true Shakespeare until you've enjoyed it in its true Klingon form. I'm like, okay, at the time I'm 16. What, Christopher William Shakespeare was a Klingon? Hold up.
right?
I don't get it. I don't get it. What are you talking
No,
about?
that's 100% Nicholas Meyer right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
100%
now you can
Nicholas
read.
Meyer.
Now you can buy Shakespeare in Klingon. I
Well,
actually
I
had
think
Shakespeare in Klingon here one time.
well, it was also really good because that was around the same time as the falling of the Berlin Wall and
Yeah.
communism in the Soviet Union. So it was like that whole ending of the Klingon conflict where the Klingons were juxtaposed as the Soviet Union, and here's the Federation as the United States. So it was like a really Cold War driven script, which is also something that Nicholas Meyer was good at, because I feel like out of the 80s, like with his film, it was the made for TV movie The Day After.
I remember that with
I
what's
had
her
Steve
face?
Gutenberg in it.
What's her face? On Golden Pond Daughter.
Yes,
Fonda.
yes,
That
yeah,
movie was. Remember? Okay, that movie was so heavily censored because it was so. We were supposed to watch that in school. We had to get permission slips to watch it in school because my teacher was, we were in the middle. We didn't know that the Cold War was going to end 7 years later. We're thinking. I'm growing up on an Air Force base. All right, yeah, sorry, I'm growing up on an Air Force base, so we're a target of a nuclear strike, and so we're
Yeah.
like, we want to watch this, and then they said nah because it was so graphic at the time. And then a couple of years later, here comes Red Dawn, and we can all watch that in the movies, which is
Right.
absurd.
yeah.
But I couldn't watch it made for TV. I couldn't watch it made for TV because it was. I think that scared a lot of people. The Cold War scared. I mean, you guys, this generation today. Okay, that's why fans are hoping.
That's true.
Yeah, and you also remember they were marching. I don't know if we have video or anybody has a team. They had signed up in front of Paramount Studios because they didn't want Next Generation to be and they wrote that letter. Remember that letter that they wrote? They wrote, and everybody signed it like, you can't blast from Kirk and all that. I'm like, dude, the show got canceled for one. All right, and if it wasn't for Star Wars, there wasn't going to be an opening for a Star Trek TV show. Remember, it was supposed to be a Star Trek version 2.
Yeah, phase
Right?
2 or whatever.
Yeah, phase 2. And I even have the movie poster here where it says phase 2, and it got changed into a movie because of what Star Wars was doing.
True.
So everybody wanted to up their game. So you
They're
got
IP mining.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s.
Yep. And thank God they did. I mean, a lot of people don't like the motion picture.
What? Malcolm McDowell's in that movie? I have to check that out. Time After Time.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell. He's in the he's in Generations. He's in The Ribbon.
Yep.
Dr.
Soren.
Yeah, that was a horrible that movie. I hate that movie. I mean, it was just it was just for me like it was a nostalgia. Hey, let's get Kirk and Picard together, and that's really all they did. And the way they did it, I hated Kirk in that movie. I'm like, he's just riding around on a horse in a some place that doesn't exist.
A couple phase 2 scripts became TNG episodes.
That I can believe.
Remember that makes sense. Star Trek 6 being Starfleet Academy prequel, young Kirk and Spock.
There was a lot of ideas floated around about there's some critical junctures that where Star Trek could have become something way different than what we ended up with. I'm sort of glad we ended up with what we got.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's lasted. I'm just happy right now that there's a Trek for every Trek fan. If you don't like Discovery, we got Strange New Worlds coming for you. If you don't like live action Trek, there's 2 different types of animation type of
that episode was kind of bad.
Which one?
The Child.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't it the season premiere of season 2?
I'd have to look it up. I need to have episode guides here in front of us.
Right.
We're going to be referring to that over and over again. And I should have Paramount Plus like behind me because I have that as a streaming service. But so favorite Trek for me is going to be Voyager from 1 to 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right after that, it's Next Generation and DS9. I love Discovery currently, but we're only in its middle of its 4th season, and that comes back in February. I want that anomaly to be V'ger, just because I think it makes sense. It looks like it when you look at V'ger and you look at the way the visualization, it reminds me of V'ger. I think it's a crime that they never revisited V'ger after all this time. How does something come that big almost destroy the Earth in the creation of Earth, and we never bring that up again in 45 years? So
Right.
I'm hoping it's V'ger, because that would be, a uniting thing for old Trek fans too. Old Trek fan love that movie.
Bring it full circle. Well, I like the soundtrack. Like that. Jerry, I was saying it earlier. Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah,
like,
so
oh man, he just nailed it. That Alias theme.
oh yeah.
We're just traveling through the stars, and it's just like before the movie even starts, it's just like, oh wow, this is really cool. Gets you in the mood, gets you where you gotta go.
It gave us the Next Generation theme. The best thing that when Scotty is taking him to the Enterprise for the very first time, or during the refit, and they do the roundabout, and
it's nice and slow, just
like,
beautiful shots of
yeah,
Starbase and freaking, oh my god, the Enterprise and all of its ILM glory.
Yeah,
wait, no,
the whole
didn't Trumbull do that one? Or no, that was ILM.
It might have been ILM. It was early though. It was 79. So
no, it was Trumbull that did the first. He did the motion picture. ILM did the second one, because ILM did the first CG on film.
Yeah, and they had the Reliant. In fact, I have a Reliant here. Hey, I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna come back in with my phone so I can show you guys some of the
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely. Yeah. Now, you guys, we're in for a treat. This is gonna be great. William's gonna show us around the Sci-Fi Center down there. He has a Star Trek section all planned out, so we're gonna get to take a look, a little bit of a tour. So that should be pretty fun. We'll get that hooked up as soon as he comes back. Yeah, dude, they did the first holy CG scene in history, and yes, dude, Jerry Goldsmith's music is amazing. James Horner did a great job with Star Trek 2. What is his name? I keep wanting to say Alan Silvestri, but that's the dude that did the music for Back to the Future. The one who did the music for Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. I forgot what his name was, but man, he was really good. Yep. Welcome to the mod party, everybody. Welcome to the mod party. 1 second here. Let me do that real quick, and then we'll add William to the stream, and we'll no. You come over here. I go over there. All right, we got you on the full screen, man. Let's take a look.
Right. So now I gotta think, how do I turn my camera around when I'm on the Streamlabs?
I think there should be a button near the top. I think that you could flip your camera around.
Camera.
But I'm not sure. It's been a while since.
Here we go. Camera facing back. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see everything?
Yeah. Oh,
all
wow.
right. So it's a mess here right now because I'm in the middle of my own refit, and I'll show you that. This is one of the items we got. This is the 1701. It's the one of the schematic breakaways we got, and this was from a few years back. And then it has everything on there. So right here, it has your essential crew, Captain James C. Kirk, Commander Spock, Lieutenant Commander McCoy, and so on all the way down to Yeoman Janice Rand. And then it gives you the characteristics, what type of ship it is. It's a Constitution class. Your technical specs and everything else.
Oh, wow.
Dorsal views, all this. This is the kind of stuff that they would make back in the there was a company called SciPub Tech who did these breakdowns really well, and I'm going to show you one of their products. All right, so this is the wreckage that is currently the store, because right here, if you can see in the back, that used to be a movie screen. We used to do all of our screenings in here. Game of Thrones, the whole works, everything. Right here is the magazine section. I have every issue of the Star Trek magazine. They're not in any particular order, but that's them. And this is back, like I said, these magazines were really important before the internet. Because remember, when Star Trek the magazine came out, the original one, the really, really good one, which is this one right here. This came out in the late 90s. This magazine, remember, we didn't have the internet in that way. We had, the handshake with AOL and all that.
Do you have the Star Trek Communicator magazine? Because that was the one that was like the catalog. I love that.
Yeah. They were just always trying to sell you something in that magazine, but
Oh,
that's money. So, so right here, every issue of this would have a technical diagram of something to do with Star Trek.
Oh,
So
heck yeah.
this month was the Voyager, and let me show you. This magazine's about 20 years old, but
Wow.
like I said, they packed a lot of these magazines because we didn't have the internet.
Oh, I've had a couple issues of that.
Yeah,
Star Trek magazine was legit.
yeah, and then it would go. It would be talking about everything that was going on currently in Star Trek. Even Patrick Stewart. This is when Patrick Stewart was going to play Professor X, but obviously he's always going to be Picard to us. It
Yeah.
would go over all the episodes, and like right when this came out, we were in season 6 of Voyager. And then here's the thing that I loved about it. I lived for every month when this came out. It
Oh,
always came out on time. So the Voyager, it gives you everything you ever wanted to know about Voyager. Everything you ever wanted to know about Voyager. And they would always have this. There's your technical specs, but it would always be a fold out. So this was a fold out that gave you. So, for
yeah,
example,
they get the whole bridge there. Oh man.
yeah, Chakotay's office, astrometric,
Transporter room.
all that stuff, and they would do it for every ship. It did it for a Klingon bird of prey. It did it for the Enterprise E, the Sovereign class. And it would tell you basically everything you needed to know about that on paper. Nowadays we can just press a button and we can literally have a 3-dimensional on our screen. But back then, this kind of stuff was cool. Now we're gonna go to these.
Oh wow.
These are now, if you see the size of my hand, these are about how big these are. These are painted little pieces of artwork. They're about 12 by 10s, and I had them made. I have more coming.
Dude, those are cool.
So yeah, so we start from the original series era. If you look, that's the badge. I've kind of evolved these as they go along. There's medical versus science. So even though they're the same color, and each one of them would correspond with a rank that a person on the show had. So obviously, this is Spock. When Commander met two solid things. That's Chekhov because he's an ensign. And then you have Scotty,
Yeah.
his rank, and you can see the gold down there. And then you'd have your incident operations. This would be Kirk. If you notice, there's 4 solid stripes, or actually 3 solid stripes.
Yeah.
And then we moved on and got a little bit creative. And this is Worf. The only thing there's a mistake here when she made them for me is Worf was never a full-on commander when we saw him on TV. He was only a lieutenant commander, but she added the details. This one's 3-dimensional. And then there's there's his whatever what is that called? There's a Klingon dressing that they allowed him to wear. This one was for Troy. Troy, when she started wearing the uniform after Chain of Command.
One of the best episodes of Next Gen too. I love that episode.
Part 1 and Part 2, and then we have I had a captain one, but this is Riker.
Commander Riker.
Yep, on the backs of them there would be like who they were, and like on the ones that get made, like what the commander does. Like it'd be like examples of commander will be Commander Riker, and so, and then and on the back would be what a commander does as far as on a starship. A commander is basically the department head of everybody else. Like everybody else that works in their sections, the commander, he's the XO. He goes around, he does all kinds of things, but he runs that show. And then depending on the size of the ship, for instance, which is why Tuvok was a lieutenant commander when you first see him, and it's not a mistake. When Voyager first launched, Voyager had a lot more people on it before half of them were killed by the array.
That is true.
When you have a certain amount of people, you have to have a certain rank, a certain seniority to be able. So, for instance, for every 100 or so, 50 people in your section, you have to have a lieutenant commander. If it's anything less than that, a lieutenant can run it. Anything less than that, a lieutenant junior grade. So when Tuvok first takes over, when you first see Tuvok, he's a lieutenant commander because he has a full complement of people, which is why when you look on a ship the size of the Enterprise, every department head is a lieutenant commander, or is moved up to a lieutenant commander at one point. Geordi starts out as a lieutenant junior grade, but as he's placed in chief engineer, he eventually attains the rank of lieutenant commander. Data was chief of operations. He's a lieutenant commander, and so on. Chief of engineering, everything else. So that's how the ranks, and that's how it works in the Navy too. All right. So now here's this. I think with the exception of a few sales we made today, I think I have every Star Trek paperback out. As you can see, the gaps. Those gaps came from today. And these go from the motion picture. I had the Wrath of Khan. So there's Voyager books. There's books here from every level of Star Trek. Whether it be DS9. Here's speaking of Star Trek 6. That's the novelization.
Nice.
So we have all that, and then once again, Star Trek 5. I hate that movie, but Star Trek the Voyage Home. So a lot of people like these simply because it allows them to put the script in there that they couldn't put in the movie. It didn't translate to movie. But when they do these books, these novelizations, they put them out there. They put the stuff in there that they don't put in the movie. So a lot of people like to use these as a reference.
Yeah.
A reference point. So you have the Next Generation. I'm pretty sure I have every single Next Generation book. And then there's some ones like Star Trek versus X-Men, which was, something that was kind of a cool thing. I mean, X-Men was popular at the time. And then some of the episodes that, the continuations to some of the episodes. Leonard Nimoy's personal books that he wrote.
Nice.
Then William Shatner's book. This
Star Trek Memories.
Yeah. This is actually signed by John Delancey.
Oh.
You can't see the signature, but that's a Q figure.
I can see it. That's awesome.
Yeah. One of the more hilarious things I have here is a 25th anniversary Star Trek Pez.
One of my buddies has that. I love that.
I love this.
It's so cool.
Yeah. And then you have your glass from the original movie. And this is all these are not in their final spaces, but yeah, I got tons of it.
I used to have that. The technical manual for Next Generation. I used to have that book.
You want to go back into the 70s? Let's go back there and look at that. That's actually a technical manual. Ships of the Line. I have those. I have several different versions of Ships of the Line. Then we have the Captain's Log. Back when these were the only 3 captains we had. Just so this predates. Another owner's manual. Like anybody was ever gonna.
It's like a Haynes manual for a car, though. That's killer.
Yeah, it is designed exactly like one.
Oh, I'm a car guy. They sell those at AutoZone.
Yeah, they sell soft covers now. Old school people like me and Joe.
I used to have that
VHS.
Yep, I had 3 out of the 5.
Yeah, I had. Yeah, at one point I had all the ornaments, but now I just have the one from All Good Things.
Oh, I like that.
This is one thing we picked up today. The cards.
Paul, yeah.
Yeah. These are actually really old. Some of these
TV guides. I had one for Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict.
I remember that show. This is back in the 90s. So there's not one of these in here that is younger than a quarter of a century old.
Yeah.
And especially that one. This is 1992. So this one is literally 30 years old. That's a TV guide. Another technical manual, Star Trek Compendium.
Encyclopedia. I used to have that.
Yeah, and we have back when the computer games were out there. Here's a cadet training manual. A couple different cadet training manuals. So I try to pick up these things. This was the Star Trek. This was the original Star Trek Starfleet Command when you had to get the disc. You had to get the disc and play it, and then there was no at that time. We didn't have the kind of internet that we had now, so you weren't playing online with people. If you can imagine that. Now it's a night. Just trying to think of what we didn't have. Back then, it's a nightmare. Here's another one that I'm about to get framed. This is from the motion picture. This is a diagram. Same ship I showed you before, but it's the refit, and it's a much more colorful thing right here. And it gives you everything. It gives you each one has a numbered section right here that coincides with this. So your engineering, your core, your warp core, the bridge, the warp nacelles. So everything you wanted to know that goes there. We had that. Here is a old school poster.
Dude.
From they were selling something. This was I forgot what Fossil was, but they were selling something, and this was one of the older painted ones. So now that's the Star Trek part of the Star Trek section. There's other stuff in here. Now, this is the one we're working on right now. This has nothing to do with our topic, so sorry. This
okay.
is the Star Wars section.
Ooh.
See all the wood that I'm currently building because I have to build a couple of center walls. Here you have the
Love
Holy
those
Trinity
posters.
of Star Trek in order. We'll eventually have one in here, but this one just stays. Now, this company right here, they actually made Star Trek posters. It's called SciPup Deck. They're no longer in business. What they would do is the same thing I just showed you, but they would take a scene from the movie. This is a scene where Han shoots out the TIE fighter and allows Luke to destroy the Death Star. They have them for Star Trek. They had ones for Voyager, when Voyager's fighting the Borg, and they have a schematic for both ships. They had the Delta Flyer in there, and this company was great, and I still try to pick these up. There's paintings for Star Wars. So it's the Brady Bunch, but it's Star Wars. This is actually a 77 original Millennium Falcon I'm in the process of restoring. And it's been a bitch to do.
Oh, that's cool though.
Then our Baby Yoda
Grogu.
section. Baby Yoda.
Nice.
All
Nice.
different forms. Han Solo and Carbonite. That's actually a life size, about a 60 inch. Wrestling fans, there's my belts. You see me wear these. I'm moving these around, but right now they're in the way. But yeah, this will be the Star Trek section. There's actually going to be a center section in here that makes it so that all the Star Trek comics are in here, or Star Wars comics are in here, and then this wall right here will have all the lightsabers, and you'll actually be able to pick them up and turn them on and make.
Heck yeah.
These are my favorite things from Star Wars or Star Trek when we get these visual dictionaries. And we do the ship breakdowns. This one is a vehicles of Star Trek, and it goes from the entire history of Star Trek all the way up.
Dude, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's Ray's speeder.
The Luca Hulk freighter, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and there's the character encyclopedias, which constantly have to get. There's one, and then there's an update. So I got those because, like I said, the internet kind of has made this stuff not as special for people. But
Yeah.
I get people that come in from all over that really want it. Uncut Star Trek cards before they were cut. So this is, like I said, the Star Trek section. Now this thing over here, this area this will always have Star Trek on it. Right now, this is our old movie screen. We're going to tear this down because before, when we were showing stuff in here all the time, TV shows and everything, everything was on wheels, and we'd have to move it back and fit all these people in here. We have different places in our plaza now to show these things. So this is why this is becoming a permanent area. What you're seeing right up here is where the Star Trek uniforms will actually hang from those hooks.
Nice.
So from left to right, the same way the screen hangs, from left to right, you're going to have TOS all the way up to here, which will be the most current uniform, which right now would be the Discovery's uniform. So I'll have Coleman's costume up there. And then Funko Pops will be up on this wall. And let me show you some of the other things, because right now, Funko Pops are just in a general area. But obviously, we got Star Trek. So these are where the oversized toys are currently, but this isn't going to stay that way. As we build out these other sections, we're going to thin out the merchandise here. But for the topic today, it's been really hard to keep Funkos in for Star Trek. So I got the Mirror Universe one. Yeah. I just sold the Kirk on the chair today. Made me mad because it took me a month to get it, and then when I first got it back in, there's Loki.
Oh wow!
There's alligator Loki.
Alligator Loki.
There's
cool.
Miss Minutes. I try to keep as many of the pop culture stuff in here as possible. Trek. I want to get 100 Trek ones so that we have enough to fill that section, but a lot of the Trek stuff is overpriced right now. So
yeah, makes sense.
Greatest movie ever made, Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. They're a complete set of those guys. Spider-Man No Way Home, and then the Zack Snyder stuff there. Baby Yoda and animatronic Baby Yoda, non-talking Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda and his toys, Voltron, if you're into Voltron. And then right here is some of the older stuff that'll end up going in the Trek section, the Star Trek Wrath of Khan comic from IDW. Wow. This was when IDW first started doing the adaptations. This was a while back. This is maybe mid 90s, but this is older than that. This may be as old as Crazy Joe. This one is
older. I think
Yeah. But this one, I haven't opened it up yet to look at. But Gold Key, I'm guessing this is 67, 68.
Oh wow.
It's about 52 years old. Because if you look at it, look at how Spock looks there, and how his appearance, and also all you need to know is the lifespan of Gold Key did not last too much longer after the 60s, if I can remember. Blade Runner concept sketches and stuff. This is all the variant stuff that's come out. But like I said, there's Star Trek and stuff throughout the store. But each time I get stuff, I'm trying to consolidate it into the Star Trek section, because we get a lot of people that come in, especially now with cosplay going around. Cosplay, when we get our costumes going, without the Star Trek experience around, the cosplay, it's really been hard for people to get cosplay without getting fleeced.
True.
Getting fleeced from a lot of people. Here's another Star Trek thing.
Oh, nice.
In Trouble with Tribbles, and
Tribbles.
somebody from a salon gave me a bunch of these, and immediately she knew I would love them because they're Tribbles.
Little tiny Tribbles. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then magnets for all the Doctors, starting with the let's see, do we still have the first Doctor on here? There's the TARDIS. There's the Borg.
Nice.
At one point, we had every Doctor on here, and they were all in order. There's the first Doctor. So yeah, we had all the Doctors except for Peter Capaldi's, which I think I added recently. Peter Capaldi. So the last Doctor. We don't have Jodie Whittaker because these were made before then. And then we'll have these for Star Trek too. We'll eventually have these for every. These are magnets.
Nice.
Boba Fett, R2D2, Frozen, Carbonite.
Han and the Carbonite. That's cool.
Yeah, so I got that. Here's another classic one we picked up today for Star Trek. It's a classic. This one should be with the Tribbles because this is the uniform he was wearing, but I don't want to take this one out of the box. So
True. Another
non-topic thing is I love painted covers. I love fantasy magazines from the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. These are like the eerie stuff. These are all about 40 years old. These are 1981, 1980 issues. These are the newer ones that I have. But for everyone like that, I got one like this. Something else that might be as old as Joe. I'm just kidding, Joe. This one's from 1973. So this one predates. This one's even older than me. And this
10 years older than me.
Yeah, this one's 1978. And then just a lot of the basic horror stuff that they don't make anymore. Once again, the internet has made it to where these magazines don't come out as frequently, and they don't do as much, because like all the stuff that you're seeing in these magazines can be gotten within a click of a button, which is unfortunate. It's cool to have that info, but it's sad because it used to be real cool to pick up some of these magazines, especially the ones that show a lot of skin. They weren't carrying them in stores. You had to go to a comic book store, or you had to order these. Most of these magazines people got by mail order. And when you open them up, you'll see that there's mail order stuff in there. Some of the pictures, some of the posters. I'm redoing this area right here. But just to fill the space, there's a Dune poster. These are posters we get from the movie promos we do. We promoted Watchmen back in 2009. Wow, it's been a long time. But we were given out by the studio. The Geiger one. And then this one's actually signed by Flash Gordon himself in all the roles he's played. So he signed. There's Ted.
That was so funny in Ted, though. I love that movie.
Yeah, there's Ted again, and then there's him from Stargate when he was on Stargate. Nosferatu for anybody from Old Vampire. This is pretty heavy. This is actually like 30, 40 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And then the Blade Runner fan in me, I picked up a spinner model. That's not really a spinner, but it's close enough. So that's one of the things that sits in the store. And we got some crazy stuff. This is where you usually see me sitting. This is going to be rebuilt into a really space age looking thing. My flag from my deployment. When I got to meet Stan Lee, this was his third to last convention. I don't know if you guys can see that there. This was a flyer from that convention. This was in June of 2017. The sad thing about this is his wife passed away 7 days after this picture was taken. His wife.
Man.
Yeah. And then 1926 register.
That is amazing.
250 pounds. And I've had this since 2001. And then when we did the This is the artist rendering of the thing that we did back in for Spider-Man: No Way Home. This was actually on the screen in the theater we rented. So
William, were you in the same location in 07?
where was I in 07? Yes, but let me show you.
I
Now,
think I was in your store back in 07.
Yeah, here's me now. Here's outside of the store now. In 07, you see the stratosphere?
Yeah.
On the other side of that ridge of buildings facing the alley, that's where I was in 07, but in the same spots of it.
Yeah, you sold me a copy of Blue Beetle #1 back in 07.
Did I? Wow. I can barely remember what I sold today, but that's some good.
Small world.
That was my wedding. I got married on the Enterprise in Vegas.
Yeah, at the experience. Yeah, wow.
my ex-wife.
Dude,
Good
so
wedding,
many,
bad marriage.
so many people came through here to get married at the experience. I mean, it was a constant stream of business because the experience was cool, but it was expensive. So we would always have the same things that they had for like 30% off. And then people knew that when they saw it there, they'd get in their cab because we didn't have Uber at that time, and they would come down here. Here's the button wall. I've neglected my button wall. The button wall, this button wall, believe it or not, can fit up to 600 buttons. There might be about 150 to 200 here now, and they span all different things of all the weirdness of my childhood or the adult life is on this. Video games,
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering. Anybody who remembers those? $6 Million Man, the Joker from The Dark Knight, Ghostbusters. I had all the Ghostbusters here at one time.
So 66 Alfred up there.
Yes. The greatest movie of all time, Blade Runner 2049, and Blade Runner back to back. There's a blast for them. I got Muppets up here. I got Jimi Hendrix up here. Chuck Norris. They Live. The guy from My 600-Pound Whatever Life that people keep requesting in. Every time I post a picture of that, somebody comes in and gets it. It's hilarious. Highlander. There's Ramirez.
Cornelius.
Yep. Planet of the Apes. Grimace. Like I said, these are my childhood, so McDonald's is a big part of my childhood. Gilligan's Island, the entire crew. So there's a lot of us stuff. And then one last thing I'll show you before we get back to before I bore people to death. This is one of the sections I expanded into. It's called the As Seen on TV section. It's going to have all the things that are associated with this. So all that Loki stuff you saw over there, all the Blade Runner stuff, all that is going to be in this section. That screen is going to have me, telling you the connections. 70% of the people that have come into the store that are interested in comics have never picked up a comic before. They've seen these IPs on a movie or a TV show, and they vaguely know that it is associated to a comic book, but they've never read it before. I just had somebody today that didn't realize how deeply entrenched that the Eternals are into comics. So I was able to sell them that story. Same thing with most of the stuff up here. Here's Kang. A lot of the things that are going to be coming up, we're getting ready for that, so that when these guys come in, even though they're not paper comic collectors, we can get them into the industry. Because
that's awesome.
We want to have them. And here's one of the ones I'm building up right now. And these are all the trade paperbacks and things like that, the hardcovers. Because another thing is that back issues are kind of pricey now, but if you got somebody in that, that just watched Captain America Civil War, for example, we can sell them a book. I mean, I might not want to sell you $200 or $300 worth of because that might turn you off, but I can sell you a $15 book. I can still sell you the story. And if you want to get into all the minutia, you can, but you have that option. So that is pretty much all the weirdness here that I'm working on. Like, so a lot of it is a lot of word working and waiting for merchandise to come from overseas. Some of these sections cannot be completed because I'm waiting on uniforms. I'm waiting on mannequins. Some of that stuff is coming from China, and right now the turnaround for China is tough as far as trying to get all of our stuff in. I've been waiting on the Wrath of Khan getting some that I ordered from China for almost a month and a half now.
Oh wow!
So, all right, I'm gonna get off of here and I'm gonna jump back on the big screen.
Sounds good.
You guys, like 2 seconds.
No problem.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, this is actually killing my eyes because I don't usually use my cell phone for this, and I have
Oh,
old man
gotcha.
eyes now. But I wanted to show you something, so I needed to be mobile. But man, looking at the little images is killing my eyes. Yeah, this is the bar where I do most of my videos.
Oh wow.
But William showed us a signed John Delancey Q action figure. I got to go under a wire here.
Oh, you got one of those too?
No, I have a signed figure, but it's a weird one. It's this is my weirdest Star Trek collectible.
Oh, dude, this is like Enosh House Part 2.
Right?
I
Oh wow,
have,
look at all that Star Trek stuff.
I have that figure.
a signed Harry Mudd figure, but it's an action figure of Roger C. Carmel from the original series, signed by Rainn Wilson.
Ha!
Oh,
That's
great.
epic.
That's
Ray
great.
Wilson signed it. That's awesome.
That figure to the left, that Star Trek the motion picture figure, I had a whole set of all of those, and somebody bought the whole set. I love those figures the way they do it. As like Saru, I'm getting those figures into the Discovery figures because like a lot more people are starting to get turned on to that show. Strange New World is going to do wonders for Star Trek paraphernalia.
Absolutely.
Strange New World, and it's going to introduce, and this is where if you waited long enough, old Trek fan and new Trek fan will actually become one now because they're introducing this 50-year-old version of this character to modern audiences who love Pike, and a lot of the old Trek fans loved that season 2 of Discovery is awesome because of Pike. The episode where he knows about the he touches that thing, the little Klingon thing that tells him about his future, about what's gonna happen to him, and he still goes forward with what he needs to do. That was like that's great. I can't wait for this show, and it's going to do wonders for that era of Trek. Because now, you know what? People who think that Trek is too old to watch, it's decrepit, it's poor quality value and all that because we have all this modern shit. Once they watch Strange New World, I think they're going to embrace that for the very first time. So I think it's there was a good decision, and a lot of those guys didn't like Discovery when it first came out, but without Discovery's model working, we don't have Strange New Worlds. We don't even have a reason to have Strange New Worlds. So it's
somebody pointed out that because Strange New Worlds is the characters introduced in the cage.
Yes.
That technically the cage is the pilot episode of Strange New Worlds, and it's the longest gap of pilot to series order ever.
Technically, that is true. And it's cool because now, guess what? I got some 15 or 16-year-old kid that's gonna watch the cage. That was not happening. That was not happening prior to all this coming together. So I think Trek is in a good space. Now, a lot of people don't want, it's behind a paywall. You have to pay to see it. Welcome to the future. All right.
That's also how it survives. It wouldn't survive on network TV. Network TV, Star Trek is too niche, and that's been proven because every time it's been on network TV, it hasn't done so well.
Yeah, and it's expensive. It's expensive too to produce. So, if you have these things, to where you can justify the budget, I'm okay. I am okay with paying a check. I went without a new Star Trek show for 12 years. I would have given my right arm for some new Trek. So $7, $8, $9 is all I got to pay. And not only do I get that, I get all the Trek. And see, and that's what Strange New Worlds is going to help them, is because they're going to have all that Trek at their fingertips now. They get to go find out who Pike is. They need to go find out, okay, what happens after Pike. Some of the stuff that they reference in this is going to be kind of cool because it leads to things we all know. We've all been had around us for our childhood. Now these guys get to experience Trek for the very first time, that's hard to do, to reinvent yourself and give yourself to new audiences that are of a generation, 3 and 4 generations behind. Like my grandfather was in the Trek. My dad was in the Trek. And now literally, you have a 4th generation of Trek fans, and everybody, eventually it's all going to be on streaming. Streaming is where it's just too easy to justify budgets of things and make money because, like I said, if I'm, because cable's made it hard. A lot of people are cutting cable. They're cutting cable and they're getting these streaming services. Because like HBO Max, before HBO Max, I had HBO Go or whatever the 10 of them were. I had to have HBO to have that. I think one of them I had to have. Now HBO Max, I could drop HBO if I wanted to. ESPN with Disney, Hulu, and what's the other one that they're connected to? Disney, Hulu, the
Disney Plus.
It's a bundle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need to have ESPN proper if I don't want to, because you get everything on ESPN Plus. And if you have a smart TV, you're just feeding all these apps into your smart TV. It's the way to go for some people, because cable is expensive. I have cable and I have all these streaming services, so I can write them off. But for the average person who doesn't do this as part of what they do, it's expensive. And so the people putting this content out, they understand that. And with Trek, you have it all there in front of you. So when I go to Paramount Plus and I go to the Trek section, while I'm looking for the one I want to watch, I'm like, wow, what's this? What is this? And now I'm next will be Prodigy. I'll probably start with Prodigy tonight before I watch Blade Runner and Black Lotus. Just because I'll be in that mood. But it's a good time for Trek, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
They're catching things right at the thing. I don't think you're going to see a Trek movie for a while, but you don't need to. I don't think they want to do a Trek movie for a while because of the fact that they can just continue to grow the audience. The next Trek movie will probably wrap up the Kelvin universe. That's it.
Yeah.
If they ever get that going, that keeps getting jammed up. Quentin Tarantino was supposed to do it at one time, and then he had a script, and then it died, and then somebody else was supposed to do it, and it died, and then I'm like, oh, geez. So
Chris Hemsworth said no, and then he said yes, and
because they keep offering more, and the people that don't realize when Chris Hemsworth, and all these people, for the most part, did this movie back in 08, 09.
They were nobodies.
Yeah, they weren't making jack shit. They weren't making any money compared to now. That was pre-Thor Hemsworth.
Yeah.
So now you're paying Thor money for his dad, because I know they wanted him back. Chris
George
Pine.
Kirk.
Yeah. Now you're paying Wonder Woman money for Captain Kirk. So
I bet Zach Kento would probably do it for cheap. Zoe Saldana, no, you're getting Guardians of the Galaxy money.
Yeah, you're paying Gamora money for that, and it's good for them. But now these people, because of that movie, they got other movies, and now they're really expensive for the closeout of a show that or a movie that's not going to be that's it for that, because they really need to end it and undo. I wonder if they're going to undo the Kelvin timeline and reset everything. How they're going to do it. I mean, because it is an alternate timeline, so you're going to have to address it at one point, or are they going to leave it this way forever, which I'm okay with. I just don't like that ship. I had the model of that ship here, and I just don't like the ship. Love everything about the new Star Trek, though. I like Zachary Quinto's interpretation of Spock.
Yeah.
And Bruce. It was Bruce. No, it was Bruce. What's the guy's name that played
Greenwood.
Greenwood. He does a good job of laying down and making you respect them. I didn't like Peter Weller's character and Avenger.
My wife always called his character Admiral RoboCop. We're like, and then Admiral RoboCop came in.
Yeah, because what else besides Buckaroo Banzai? Yeah. What is Peter Weller really known for?
Voicing Batman,
not screamers.
That's what he's known for. So, and then you see him, and I didn't know he was still living until I saw him on the show. So, wow, that's Peter Weller.
That's the thing. When Kirk died and Spock screamed Khan, my wife's like, "Why is he screaming Khan? It was RoboCop that did it. He should be screaming RoboCop."
Yeah, and Benedict Cumberbatch, I thought did a good job in that movie, but I thought that like I said, that wasn't the last two were good movies. Well, when you come out with that 2009 one, that's not gonna, or 2008 one, that's like the best. You're trying to follow up one of the better science fiction movies made in the last 30 years. You know what I mean? So it's really tough.
I liked the first and third. Like I liked the first JJ movie and then the Justin Lin one, but I didn't care for the Darkness. Yeah.
Beyond was like, and then once again they destroyed the Enterprise A because of the Enterprise, and they rebuilt it into A because these are things that were always going to happen. So somehow there was always these fates. It's kind of cool.
It's kind of like a nexus point in time or whatever, like they did in What Ifs.
As long as there's a Spock and an Enterprise, they are all going to converge. They may do it just like the Spider-Man thing. In all these multiverses, there's always going to be an instance where Spider-Man meets the symbiote costume. It may happen in different ways across 1,000 multiverses, but it happens.
It's okay.
Okay. So I love, and when it comes to time, Star Trek does it better than anybody.
Oh, amen.
Star Trek does time travel better, except for Voyage Home, excluding Voyage Home, because that was ridiculous. but at yesterday's Enterprise, that's what happens. So every time somebody Endgame was great, and I think of how they did yesterday's Enterprise time travel, because what happened once you took the Enterprise out of that time, look what it created a present because that Enterprise was not there. So that's what happens when you take Thor's hammer from 2013 and bring it to 2020. That's our 2019. That's what happens when you take these gems. You're coming back to a present that cannot exist. Whereas Star Trek did it right. That one ship leaving and all the things that it being destroyed, leading to the stronger relations with the Klingons, that not happening made the present something different. And that's how time travel is done. That's how they're supposed to do it. So, and shows don't do it right. Star Trek.
My favorite was the Deep Space Nine episode, The Visitor, where Sisko was getting flung through time, and Tony Todd, the Candyman, was like old Jake.
Yeah,
I love that episode.
I remember that. That was back. Wow.
You watch that episode and don't get a tear in your eye. I don't know, man. You're a Vulcan.
I think it emphasized the father-son dynamic.
Yeah,
that Avery Brooks and Sirach Lofton played off each other so well. Like,
I remember you had three generations at one time with Cisco's on there. That show was a show about family and stuff. And I just didn't like the way they wrapped his character.
No, it's true. The ending was kind of dull. It was
go ahead.
Jesus and Satan fighting at the end, falling into the pit. It's like, come on.
I hated the Paw Rays. I really hated the Paw Rays. Every time they figured out they ran out of an idea, here comes the Paw Rays. I hated the fact that they used them to kill her.
Throughout the entire series, whenever a Bajoran, whenever a Vedic or the Kai would touch a Bajoran's ear, they would always say, "Your paw is strong." They never said anything other than just once I wanted them to go, "Man, that's a really weak paw you got there."
Right.
That aspect of DS9 I just didn't go. And then when in the last episode, they defeat the Dominion within the first hour, if you can remember that. It was a 2-hour finale. They beat the Dominion. They have to surrender, and then the last half of it is this the prophet stuff. And I'm like, ugh.
But they didn't even defeat the Dominion. The prophets just made them disappear. He was like,
no, the Dominion. Remember how they defeated the Dominion?
They basically had an insurrection on the planet on Cardassia.
Well, there was that, but remember the reinforcements were coming through the wormhole, and Sisko talked the prophets into making.
Oh
them
yeah,
but that's true.
The ultimate end came when Odo healed him. Remember that Section 31 was giving him that disease, and that guy was hardcore. He'd rather kill himself than give up those secrets, and had to go into his brain and get them. So it was Odo healing them. And she turned herself over, but then and then he joins the link. So I would love to see season 8 of DS9 or a 5, 6, and 7 of Enterprise. I mean, flip a coin, I'll take either one. Because certain endings to certain seasons of shows is like the only one that really ended well for me was Voyager and Next Generation.
See, I don't like how Voyager ended. I thought they should have gotten home in the season finale the year before and had a season with them dealing with the fact that the family they left behind has moved on. People got remarried. People they missed a war. Some of their friends died in a war, and they weren't. I would have liked a whole season.
Well, they did deal with that. They dealt with that when they were getting information from the
That's true.
When Torres said all my friends are gone, but it was weird when they would bring it up is because at year one these were hardcore Maquis guys, and at the end it was like, and I remember Paris bringing up the fact that I don't have anything back there. When I left there, I was nothing. I was in a penal colony. Everything I have in life and Starfleet, everything has been happening in the last 7 years. I'm not even looking forward to going back. And he was talking to her because they're married at this point, and she's like, "Oh, all Maquis friends." I'm like, all your friends are here on the ship. And my favorite episode, one of my favorite episodes, is when future Admiral Janeway is talking to Captain Janeway, and she's realizing she spent the last 26 years trying to get them home, that she didn't realize how much they enjoyed each other's company, how much the ship was home. It wasn't everything they had was on that ship, and then nothing.
And they
else
made the
was
best of it. Yeah.
And all the stuff that they went through. Neelix, when Neelix left the ship, and he said he promised he was going to get Tuvok to dance, and Tuvok does a little dance, a little with the foot, and taps, and this, but Tuvok was always my favorite, because whenever they were just spiraling out of control with their boneheaded plans or something, Tuvok would always step in and just lay it down like I wish you had this. I wish you had that too. Well, the fact that we don't negates the fact that you're wishing for. He would just say something with a deadpan look on his face, and they'd be all like, "Yeah, okay." I mean,
I liked how they worked him into Star Trek 6 too. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, with the because he's actually in there, but he was in there as just a crewman, but he's giving Sulu his tea. I loved his character. His character, in relation to the wiseness of his character. Spock had logic, but Spock was relatively young, until you see old Spock, later on. But Spock, during the heart of his career, we never got to see that. It goes from Star Trek, the show, and then we go to the motion picture, and then at that point,
he's trying to find like pure logic at that point.
Yeah,
like when you see him at the beginning of the motion picture, he's going full board Vulcan.
Yeah, whereas Tuvok never had to go through those struggles because he was a full blood. He doesn't have to deal with human emotions.
Tuvok was older too. I think if I remember correctly, he was about 100 years old when the show started.
True.
Yeah, he was up there. And he left Starfleet for 50 years. Remember that? He left Starfleet and came back, which is like, wow. You left Starfleet, and within the time you were gone, people could have been born, lived, and died in that spot. That's how old. T'Pol was 60. They never really delved into her Vulcanhood as much as they could.
I wouldn't be upset if we got to see her again.
One of my favorite episodes of Enterprise was the one where you find out that T'Pol, or no, it wasn't T'Pol. It was her grandmother had lived on Earth in the 50s. The 3 Vulcans crash landed.
They were like a survey crew or whatever.
And the one was like, he's going out to town, and she's like, you need to get home by dark, and he goes, oh, I will. I Love Lucy's on tonight.
I remember that episode. That episode was cool. Whenever they did that kind of stuff, it was cool. But like I said, there was so much left on the table with the Enterprise. Like right now, when Scott Bakula doing a reboot of Quantum Leap, I'm sorry, I have no use for a reboot of Quantum Leap, and I don't. I want Scott Bakula to come back as Admiral Archer, because we know what Admiral Archer becomes. I want him to come back, and I want him to tell his story. What really happened. I want them to retcon that hideous last episode.
Computer and program.
Yeah, computer and pro. Oh my god! And give us. We still have all these people alive. Picard is still alive, looking good. Everybody from the Next Generation, for the most part, is still alive. The only person that's really passed away that you could use is in the Star Trek lore is Odo, but computer generated characters for the most part anyway. Worf is still alive. You just saw Data. All these characters could still be used to tell that story and bring that, because that's what's always going to, if they never finish Enterprise as the original story arc, that's always going to bug me, because they just left so much on the table, and these people are alive now to do it.
They've referenced it. On Discovery, they referenced the temporal Cold War, because they said, time travel's not allowed because of so they've at least acknowledged it in some way. I'm hoping they're going to go back and offer some kind of resolution.
I want that Romulan. I was promised.
The shadowy figure.
You clearly see that was a Romulan in there. I wanted him to come out. I wanted to see the flat-headed Klingon. The storyline that they gave us for that to explain that was not what we were going to get. But I wanted to see the Klingon war between the flat-headed Klingons, who were basically would wipe the floor with a normal ridgehead, because they were being engineered to do that. That was the proxy way that the Romulans would have taken over the Klingon Empire and kept them from ever coming close to a union with the Federation, because that's what stopped the Romulans from taking over that quadrant. So I would love to see that. Do a cartoon. I don't even care how you do it. Cartoon, claymation. I want
Comic
that
book
story.
run. What the hell?
Yeah, because they put a lot into it. Broken Bow, episode 1, you see a Klingon running from that Suliban thing. Why did we see that? And the blood, him taking the blood sample, and the Romulans were experimenting on him. They gave him technology that they weren't supposed to have, and then that's where I really nobody ever asked the question about how did the Romulans get the cloaking technology and the cloaking minds in that time when we even Enterprise at that time they recognized we don't know what this is. And we all knew that the technology was displaced. It came from the future. We never got to that. And I'm like, ugh. And then, the show got canceled and got a horrible ending. So
I'm always that ending. It's not a good ending.
no, it's a crime. It's a crime. That ending is a crime.
It's not a good ending at all. But I always kind of go easy on them because I understand what they were going for. Like they said they wanted it to be like a love letter to the fans, wrapping up 18 years. And it's like, okay, I get that. I get the sentiment. I think it's a good sentiment. Just doesn't work.
No, it didn't work because you never had any Next Generation anything on there, and all of a sudden the last episode you have them on there. 2, the trajectory of the characters that's not what those characters were meant to do, especially Trip. What the hell?
And I still know people to this day who think that the entire series of Enterprise didn't happen because it was all a hologram. And it's like, no, that was just the one episode. It wasn't the whole series.
But like I said, if I could ever get them to fix that and bridge all of this together, and I think you have a chance because, dude, you're going to have to explain in Strange New Worlds how he's changed everything now. The very fact that Pike knows what's going to happen to him, that changes his reality. And he's going to run into things that are going to change the reality. So the Pike that we know and love is being changed from the very fact that Discovery came together with him. So I cannot wait to see how that's fleshed out. And I love that the Anson Mount is a perfect actor for him. I mean, and when he was in that episode that season 2, I was rooting for him when he's like Starfleet's an oath or Starfleet's a promise. I don't leave you, you don't leave me. I love that quote. Because they were trying to convince him to go back for Saru, I think it was, or somebody that Starfleet had told him you got to leave them behind because it was going to endanger some mission that they were on. He said, "No, we're not doing that." And he just seems like the kind of guy that that would be compelled to act that way. We just never got enough of him. By the time we saw him again, he was in the chair, and then we see him again. It's Bruce Greenwood, but we never see that middle part. Usually I'm not for telling stories within a finite space. That's why my biggest problem with Star Wars is that we're telling stories within a finite place when we know what happens to the basic characters. But because there's that caveat that they've changed it so that we don't necessarily know what's coming for that character's lineage because they've changed it. Plus we have Q. I am fully expecting Q to go back there for this to happen to him and for Q to do something to him where that changes his trajectory beyond what we know of him so that he can exist outside. Otherwise, he doesn't have a very long life left. I mean, he goes on there with the Telosians, but story-wise, that's boring. I know that's the original storyline, but, you're going with your old lady with these old, aliens, and you're just going to live there forever. I mean, now that I've experienced a season of you on TV, I want more of that. Number 1's going to be cool. Like Rebecca, I can't wait. When does the show premiere?
Sometime this year. They haven't given us a date yet, but it's this year. Pike had one of my favorite lines on all of Discovery when they were going to activate the spore drive, and he had the line, "If you're telling me that this ship can skip across the universe on a highway made of mushrooms, I kind of have to go on faith."
Yeah,
I love that line.
Yeah, he had a lot of good lines. That was one of them. And in this series, like I said, the current. Do you watch Discovery, Joe?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I was talking to him before about one of my favorite characters on there. Has probably had a total of 10 minutes of screen time, Kovic, and just the way he's annoyed, but he's wise. He's like when he first reads Cobert, he's like, "I have a 2:00," and he just disappears. And when Cobert was trying to get out of the meeting, he's like, "I don't really think this is a great time for me. This meeting." He's like, "You made the appointment," and then he just doesn't let him out of it. And it's this deadpanness about him that is like, and he's right. He hasn't been wrong yet. He either hasn't been wrong or he's been open-minded to something that's right. Like with Zora, he was open-minded to them fleshing out what they were going to do. to the point where if one of them hadn't been open-minded, he was going to basically transfer them to another ship. So
Yeah.
I would like to learn more about him because he's pretty powerful as a character. But Steven Cronenberg, I didn't know he could act.
Yeah, me neither. That's
I
who
mean,
knew?
he's just unsettling but comforting. He's like, you just don't feel comfortable around him, but he's comforting you with this like when he's Giorgio, when they entered one of
Oh
the
yeah, when he was talking to the Empress, it was like,
yeah,
oh okay, I get it.
he knows exactly what's going on with her, and she doesn't. He needs to. He thinks, you want to play with my glasses, and then she plays with glasses as communicate. He's basically probing her, and then when they showed that one time guy that jumped from universes, and he explains how not only did she jump forward in time, she jumped universes, and then in the 500 years since or so, the universes have been spreading across. There hasn't been a crossover from the mirror universe, and he said almost 500-600 years. So that was cool. And the way he says, he gives you this news in the same way he gives you happiness. If COVID, they should have those shirts where they have like Darth Vader mad, happy, sad, and it's all the same face. That would be COVID's shirt. So they just have like a fucking just his face. But he's a great character. Stamets is getting on my nerves a little bit because he's just too wishy-washy now because he's been exposed to different people. The Adora, I needed her to go. What's the Gray? That part of the storyline I just wasn't connecting with.
Gray served no purpose except for like everything Gray had on the show was Adira's story. It's like Gray had no story of his own.
Now, I was happy when they wrote them out. I wrote her out, or wrote him out for that, and then they basically minimalized. Whenever you see Adora, she's a part of the crew now. She's doing things as a full-blown ensign. She's not just, I think I can help it. She's being ordered. She's part of the thing.
My favorite's Jet Reno. I wish Tig Notaro would do more episodes because I love Jet Reno.
Yeah, when they're going back and forth with the scientist that created the anomaly thing.
Her acerbicness is just like on point. So much.
Like, she like this all the time. It's like, this is her a good day. Yeah, Jet Reno. I think schedule conflicts and COVID really hurt her appearance in the seasons because they had to film this last season at the height of it. So yeah, they need her more.
I like Book. Book's a great character.
I'm sort of annoyed of him this last episode. I understand.
Yeah, because it was like he got some kind of closure, but then he also was like, I'm going to go get him. It's like, I thought we were over this.
I'm having trouble getting a feel for his race, though, because they're like
they're in touch with nature.
They're like, but I don't know. Like I was on the Topic is Trek podcast. They had me as a guest, and we were talking about the destruction of his world, which the name's escaping me right now. And I said, Quajon. And I said, it's hard to be emotionally invested because we only saw Quajon like twice. It's like if you told me Vulcan was destroyed or Beta Z or something, I have an emotional connection to that world. But Quajon's a planet you've only shown me like 2 times.
Yeah. It's not in the lore of Star Trek like Vulcan is. When you see Spock's homeworld destroyed, you're like, that's Spock. Even if we've only seen an hour of total Star Trek film on that, we know Spock. We know he's a Vulcan. We can relate. Quajon is a new planet from a relatively new character. So, yeah, I don't feel the emotional attachment to his planet.
If they're to take out Bajor, I'd be pissed.
Yeah,
my wife does have a T-shirt, though, of Book holding grudge that says I'm holding a grudge on it.
Oh, the Queen. I saw one. Somebody came in one day that said Queen. Yeah,
I love it.
He's calling her a queen. His character started to get on my nerves this last couple episodes because it was so predictable that he's going to work outside the bubble and get himself in trouble and he's going to cause problems. I'm like, I saw that coming a mile away. Another character who I'm not as pulled by this year, and I was through previous years, is Doug Jones, Suru. I'm not as compelled. And he doesn't hurt the show. The show's still great. I'm just not as compelled by him as I usually was. His advice is coming. Maybe it's because he's not in a leadership position like that anymore. I'm just not as compelled by him. Book I have some issues with because he's predictable because of obviously he wants the whole vengeance thing. I'm like, I sort of like the scientist, but he reminds me of today's techies that are full of themselves, so he's cool. Burnham. Love the character. the show centers too much around her. They're getting better. But there are other people on the show that I think that could use some time. I mean, it's always her voice. It's always told from her point of view. You got a whole crew. Most of those crew have been there. This is their 4th year on that crew, 4th year with all these people.
They just lost Mary Wiseman, though. I'm like, damn it. We could have had. I want to see some Starfleet Academy episodes with Tilly.
I think you're going to see that in its own show. She's coming back. You realize that's just a temporary. She's not gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's coming
I
back.
don't-
That's just a storyline. Yeah.
We need to see like Nielsen and Detmer and
Yeah.
these guys like
Yeah.
actually get something to do.
Like the one guy. What's the guy that helped figure out all the stuff when they were when the shields were closing in?
Yeah,
that's
that
what
dude.
I see from him. But it's not Sonequa Williams' fault. It's the way they wrote it. But you really never seen Star Trek focused around one person. Even
By
in
the way, she is so sweet. I met her at Dragon Con. She is one of the nicest. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Sonequa Martin Green.
oh, cool. That's a great. I can't wait to meet her when she comes out here. If she comes out to Vegas, but the story just is focused around her. And when you looked at previous Trek shows, and this is where I do agree with old Trek fan, is that it was a balanced storyline. Sometimes it will be about Data. Sometimes it'll be about Worf. I mean, obviously Picard was the focal point, but he's there. But other stories are being told.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
And I think
with the original series, you went with the trilogy or the
Yeah.
Trinity of Bones, McCoy, Spock, and Kirk. And then the Next Generation, it kind of broadened out a little bit to about 5 characters that are kind of just integral to each other. And the good thing is they all build each other up. It's like Data on his own is Data, but Data with everybody else.
Data's friendship with Geordi is important.
Huge.
Even on the original series, I mean, you have Nurse Chapel storyline brought in, or they would bring in a no-name Redshirt, and give him a couple lines before they killed him.
By the way, Nurse Chapel's coming back on Strange New World.
Yes.
And number 1 is obviously on Strange New World. I'm a little disappointed they don't have Rebecca Romaine playing both characters in different colored wigs, because that would have been hilarious.
Yes, in a blonde wig as Nurse Chapel.
Yeah.
Oh
she'd
man,
probably want good money to do that. Well, especially in my
I
contract.
still think it's a bit of a crime they didn't have Marina Sirtis do the voice of the computer.
Yeah.
Who's the voice of the computer?
Well, I don't know now, but like before it was Majel Barrett, so it's like
It might still be. I haven't heard the computer in Strange New
well,
World.
Zora's different.
Oh, you're talking about Zora, yeah. Dude, have
but-
you seen the body, the face attached to Zora? Holy cow. It's hot. Not to demean any women watching the show, but Zora sounds as hot as her voice indicates she is.
Fantastic. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. So with your
That's my new
Siri,
Siri voice.
Now, which you'll probably see her because I think they're going to give her an android body or
Yeah.
some type of manifestation.
a la Picard.
Yeah. Oh,
We'll get another Golem. Well, they already did it with Gray, so that's.
I think they did it better with Gray because with Gray, it's her soul, it's her Katra, or whatever that is being transferred. Picard's dead. Picard is dead.
Yeah, he had Ironic syndrome. Like
Picard recreating a robot without transferring his soul to that robot means Picard is dead, which is why Q is there. Because I think Q is going to make a Pinocchio type joke with him. Q is going to have the real Picard's soul alongside.
I didn't think about that. That makes sense.
Robot Picard is going to be there, and I think at the end of the story arc, Q is going to merge them.
Tapestry 2.0.
Yeah,
I think that we need to all start calling him Robot Picard now. I love that.
But that series I liked up until that part. I'm like, wait a minute, he's dead.
Well, they shoehorned Brent Spiner in there again as another Soong. It's like, how many offspring does this guy have?
But according to some people on Star Trek, everybody dies all the time when they get in the transporter.
Yeah.
There's some people that say that the transporter kills everyone.
Didn't Bones say this is the thing that disassembles the molecules?
Oh yeah,
God knows how many times I've died on that thing. Technically, that's true because because you're reassembling somebody. So basically, if you disassemble them, you're creating a new person every time you do it. Unless you're saying that thing takes your electromagnetic conscious, because there's theories that the conscious is nothing but a electromagnetic field that finds its, that houses itself in your flesh, human brain. But if there was a way for your body to maintain that field, that it could go other different ways, and so that when you reconstruct your body, you're basically restoring that electromagnetic field, so you're basically still alive because your soul goes with your body. They never really explained it that way. The way they explain it is that you're basically teleporting, going one way to another. Now what they should have done, and what it looks like now, whenever you see them transport, it looks like they're teleporting legitimately, like they're opening up a wormhole the way they go. Whereas before they would particleize, now it just goes. Yeah. So it's a different thing altogether. So yeah, the transporter technology, yeah, technically you're dead. Technically, everybody died back in 1967. So
what is that?
So yeah, man. But there's a lot of you're technically a copy, yeah.
Yeah.
But with the soul, I mean, because like I said, if Picard, if all they did is copy his engrams or whatever, they basically copied those things, but that's not him. So
it's like what they did they B4'd him basically.
Yeah. Before, yeah. But yeah, the technological aspects of Star Trek are endless. I mean, time travel with them for the most part, they've done it right. It's endless. Black holes are, that and Stargate. I mean, those are the only two shows franchises that I watched that really got the understanding of what science fiction could be as far as like applying it to what we have now. Everything else is BS.
I also like the episodes where the characters out of time. What was that episode on Voyager? It was like something. It was like 1996. It wasn't.
When you come back and Tuvok had to wear the hat over his ears.
No, not that one. Not that one. That was the two-parter. It actually had Sarah Silverman in it. Actually,
it's the first time I ever saw Sarah Silverman. Was in that.
Me too. No, there was one where like Janeway was trying to stop this company from wrecking this little town.
Oh, the Millennium Gate, the one with the Millennium Gate.
Yeah, the one with the Millennium Gate, and then
it wasn't Janeway though. It was like Janeway's ancestor. It was like Gru playing. Yeah,
that one was interesting. And then there was another one, the Picard one, where he basically lives his whole life.
Inner Light. My God, that's a great episode.
Just the way they handle that, and then the communications episode with Darmok and Tanagra. I love that. I also love how they brought that.
So many memes and T-shirts.
Oh, they brought a Tamarian into Star Trek Lower Decks. It's pretty funny.
I got his puppet. I bought the puppet at Dragon Con. Hang on, I'm gonna grab it.
That's awesome.
Oh wow.
Future's End.
Yeah, there's a lot of episodes in there that I said now, and they're all
11:59. That's what it was called. That episode.
Oh my gosh.
That is so cool.
The late great Paul Winfield.
Oh, dude.
His second stint as on the Star Trek show.
Yeah.
It fared better than his first.
Now Jokic trying to get the third foul on Howard.
Who's winning? No.
Oh, dude, the Bills are destroying the Patriots right now. 47-10.
Ouch.
The episode where he turned into a puppet had literally just aired when I went to Dragon Con, and I saw this on a table, and I'm like, who the heck was sitting up like making those things? Because this thing just came on. It's like someone must have been like, good, gotta go. It's time to make puppets.
Yeah, they have all that stuff laid out. A lot of times, like I said, they got Strange New World figures on the way, and Strange New World pops. So I want to get those when they come out. The second No Way Home ones with all the Spider-Man, they got all this stuff laid out. They just have it just ready to go.
I wish they put out Lower Decks pops, because those characters I think would translate really well to pops.
I would love a Boimler pop. Just saying. A Rutherford pop.
I tried with that show. I just couldn't connect with Lower Decks. I don't know whether it's because of the tone. I understand why people like it. I'm like, I just couldn't. My Trek is geared at certain. I just couldn't turn my gears to it and make it connect. It just didn't connect with me. I hope Prodigy is better, but I just have there's certain things I need out of Trek, and Lower Decks just didn't give it. It gave me other things, but like for me, comedy-wise, comedy is not important. I have the last time I paid to see a comedy was Tropic Thunder.
William, you know what you might appreciate on Lower Decks, William? In the season finale of the first season, they went to their armory to get as many weapons as they could get, and they got the Remco Spock helmet with the siren on the top. That was a character wore that into battle.
That's hilarious, and I know Jonathan Frakes is on it. I mean, so I know it has connections. And like I said, I'm happy that Lower Decks is there, because that's just another window into Trek for people. And eventually, we'll be watching Strange New Worlds with these same people that are watching Lower Decks, even though I don't watch Lower Decks. But the roads will cross, the path will cross eventually. Because I can't believe people will watch Lower Decks, start out with that, and not eventually move on to.
My only concern with Lower Decks is it's so the jokes are so inside Star Trek.
Yeah.
A lot of times that I gotta wonder if someone who's never seen Star Trek before, like I have my podcast co-host, he loves Rick and Morty, and he keeps saying but he doesn't watch Star Trek, and he says, well, I like Rick and Morty, so I want to check out Lower Decks, and I'm like, I'm really curious to hear what you think, because I'm afraid that the jokes might be too inside for you, and you'll watch it and be like, I didn't get it.
Yeah, that's one thing that sucks about that show is there's a lot of inside baseball.
It's designed, you know how they marketed it, right? They marketed it so that people like me who have kids of that age that are watching it together. So when those jokes come out, then the old Trek fan can be like, oh, wow, what he's talking about is, and then that way the old Trek guy turns on the new Trek person to that episode and possibly that series. That was the thought process behind that, is that it's generational jokes that are meant to ask, hey, Dad, what does he mean? Or what's that? Or what is that? And then the Star Trek, things like that that an old Trekker will respond to and be like, oh man, I can't believe they put that in the show. The new Trekker's like, what is it? Well, why is it relevant? And now he's turned them on Paramount Plus, by the way. There's a plug for them. They can literally stop that episode if they want to, and they can go watch Darmok, or they can go watch that episode. So I see what they did. And it's only inside if you're just a brand new guy just watching the show without any Trek context. But I don't think there's going to be very many people watching that show that aren't watching it with a Trek person. I know everybody that I know that watches the show, it's them and their kids, them and their little nephews and stuff like that. And that's their way. That's why I like it that it exists, because it's a bridge between Trek fans. It's a way for us to pull in brand new people. And when they're 26, 30 years old, now we've got, the next generation of Trekkies coming along. So I can't watch it because it just doesn't click for me, but I'm happy it's there, which is kind of cool. In Prodigy, I had no desire for Prodigy, but I got people running in here, telling me, you got to watch Prodigy, and it's people that I'm like, that are in line with my thinking of the way Trek is. So they're telling me that I need to watch it. So now I'm
the last episode of Prodigy was amazing. They brought back Renee Auberjonois or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Odo was back.
And Leonard Nimoy.
Gates McFadden brought her voice to the equation. I was like, Dr. Crusher is one of my favorite doctors in all of Star Trek. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that second season where Pulaski took over. What the hell is going on there?
Well, Maurice Hurley was ahead of the writing room in season 2, and Gates McFadden hated Maurice Hurley with a passion. Wow. And she also decided that she wanted to go be in a movie. I think was it The Hunt for Red October?
She was in Taking Care of Business with James Belushi.
Yeah, and then, but then she came back and in season 3. Yeah. But how they did Terry Farrell was messed up, man. Like, I totally get that. Like, she was one of the big characters in Deep Space Nine that made Deep Space Nine what it was. And the loss of Jadzia Dax in the 6th season, or, for the 7th season, was just a joke.
I do agree that the way they treated Terry Farrell wasn't right. But I kind of liked that we got a new Dax, because one of the things
I like
with
Ezri.
Trill, Yeah, one of the things with the Trill is that it's a symbiote that can be moved from person to person. So I thought that was kind of cool that we actually got to see that and see, like, during the course of the series, like the two versions of Dax.
Yeah, she went from banging Worf to banging Bashir, like literally within an episode.
Right.
And then they had that whole thing where he was a they found out he was an engineered human.
I still liked it though. I mean, it kind of gave Bashir a wrinkle that and his hollow fantasies, like the two characters with the hollow fantasies, Bashir and Tom Paris. Like anything they did in the holodeck, just like next tier. Like
I have a book here, which takes place right after it's Voyager Homecoming. So it's literally as they step off of the Voyager and Admiral Paris is there waiting for all of them. He doesn't let them go do anything. He lines them all up and he promotes every one of them. He promotes Harry. He goes up the line. He promotes Harry to lieutenant junior grade. They all go up 2 ranks.
Nice.
Paris is a lieutenant commander. What's it say? Chakotay literally becomes captain of the Voyager. With Tuvok is promoted to full commander, and he yes, I knew that. So he becomes the commander, and Janeway goes up to 2-star, which is where you see her in Nemesis. She's a 2-star because remember, because of the Dominion War and the Borg conflict in the within 6-7 years of each other, they've lost a lot of Starfleet personnel.
That's true.
And they made because Chakotay he wasn't Starfleet yet until he comes back into Starfleet territory. That's why they're wearing provision ranks. If you notice that, and that's why Harry never gets promoted because there's never anything for him to be in charge of because the ship complement does not grow. You know, and they lost a lot of people, so it really never mattered. But each of the department heads, they were supposed to be a lieutenant commander for every department on that ship. If you remember, including the doctor, remember the original doctor that got killed?
That's true.
Lieutenant commander. The director.
So was the first officer was
the first officer was lieutenant commander because that ship doesn't require an 05 because it was small, but it still had enough people. Tuvok's original position was the chief security and chief of operations, which is on the ship was a hybrid position. He was a lieutenant commander. Everybody was lieutenant commander. That was a department head. But when they lost everything, the computer, because it was separated from Starfleet protocol and approvals and all that, she can only do what we call in the Army as a field grade commission. So she can only go up so high.
Like Tom Paris. He got field.
So Tom Harris was actually part of Starfleet. So Tom Harris got his outright. But Chakotay was a Maquis. He was provisional. All those other ones, but Lana Torres, the highest she could go for the amount of people, because when those people died, she had to enter them into the log as being dead. And every time you enter those people in the log, you decrease the ship's computer decreases the complement and determines that there's not enough people on here. So that's why she never got promoted beyond lieutenant junior grade, but she was the department head that had previously had a lieutenant commander because there wasn't enough people on the ship for her to command you. Your command has to be a certain amount of size to do that. So I like the way somebody was Navy who was doing that. They didn't explain it to their fans the best, but why was Chakotay? Well, they called him Commander Chakotay, but he's Lieutenant Commander Chakotay. If you look closely, he's a lieutenant commander, and he outranks Tuvok because the first officer outranks every other lieutenant commander on the ship. Even if there's 20 of them, the first officer, the XO, is going to be the second in command. No, only thing that these shows really never had, which I thought would have been cool, but other than O'Brien, was a chief petty officer that is near the captain at all time. Generally at least on Navy ships, even in
yeoman, right?
You have your captain. If it's a company commander, he has a first sergeant with him. If it's a battalion, it's a colonel, he has a sergeant major with him, and so on and so on and so on. There's always a top enlisted guy because the majority of your military in general, is going to be enlisted. And that was the only thing about Star Trek that I never really that they always left out, no matter who was doing it. There was never not enlisted people besides Miles.
I always wondered why they never did that. Like, because we always see the ad, the Lower Decks, the episode we saw like lower grade officers, but like, yeah, no, you're right. That we've never seen any warrant officers or anything like that.
Yeah, because those O1s, those ensigns, they're gonna have E7s and E8s around them, and even though that those ensigns outrank that Master Chief, that ensign ain't going to say jack shit to that Master Chief, because that Master Chief needs that 20, 30 years of experience, and he's there to train that ensign and make sure that the engine doesn't blow up the ship. So wherever you saw Geordi, you should have seen an enlisted guy that was like right near him, because that enlisted guy, the NCOs are the backbone of any military structure. It's the officers or the administrative structure, but it's sexier to say captain somebody than sergeant somebody.
True.
So, but I would love to see a Star Trek show that has a Master Chief in there, a really kick-ass, dude who could do it all and just, is the wise man. On
Salt of the earth enlisted guy.
Exactly, because that in reality, that's what you would have in Star Trek.
True.
Every time you have Picard, wherever you had at number one, you should have that E8 or E9 that's like, talking to rescue, because everybody else in that ship, out of 1,100 people that are on a Galaxy class cruiser, literally 950 of them, if not 1,000 of them, are enlisted.
True.
That's just the way it is.
There's always more enlisted than actual officers. So.
They were always weird with O'Brien too, because O'Brien, for most of Next Generation, his PIP said that he was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And then in the last season of Next Generation, before he made the jump to Deep Space Nine, suddenly his PIP changed.
Yeah, it was hollow. Yeah.
Yeah, he started saying, "Oh, I'm an enlisted man," and it's like I think the writers just changed their mind on him.
Well, no, they got better advisors, because guys like me would constantly write in paper letters being like, "When are you guys going to fix this? When are you guys going to fix this?" Same thing with Stargate. Oh my goodness, Stargate SG-1, Episode 1. Third generation military myself, so I know the ranks up and down and listed. No matter what service, I can tell you what the rank is. There is an Air Force major in there walking around with the oak leaves, the cluster leaves on his shoulder, and damn it, he had Master Sergeant stripes on. I fucking wanted to throw up. My dad, who is a Master Sergeant, an Air Force Master Sergeant, so I know what that looks like. And he's clearly a major.
See, I don't know the military, but this reminds me of when I went to see the second Annabelle movie. And raised Roman Catholic, went to Roman Catholic school. When a nun heard confession in that movie, I'm sitting there going, "Nuns can't hear confession.
Yeah, right?
Who the hell wrote this?"
Yeah, whenever I see when these shows, they have big budget shows and they don't get military advisors, a PFC and E1 can tell you better rank structure than some of the people that were in Star Trek. And Star Trek didn't have the people available. Like I said, it was and that's part of your storytelling mechanism that I would like to see, because enlisted people make up the majority of all military everywhere in the world. So those people have stories about them that I want to hear. Lower Decks. Listen, the ensigns at Lower Decks are, great. I mean, your ensign is not a part of unless he is. Ensign's a scrub, basically. Unless he's he's not a department head. He's not anybody, especially in a naval thing. He's basically a lackey to not only the officers, but the senior enlisted look at him like, "Get away from me. You're going to get us all killed." So he's inexperienced. He's not running nothing. So to see their stories is kind of cool, but I would like to see the enlisted people, because they're the ones.
They're the grunts. They're the ones doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah. When Scotty is talking to, I need more out of you. There's one episode of Star Trek where everybody in engineering is an officer. Everybody, and I'm watching the ranks. I'm like, no, you're gonna have the chief engineer. You're going to have a what's called the C&E, the chief, the petty officer, who is the top enlisted guy, because the majority of the people there are enlisted. So the chief engineer just basically barks out orders. The Master Chief is going to be the guy who gets that shit done. And that's a good story that they've always just left out of. And then uniform wise, I think, like I said, the ranks and like Tuvok's rank was messed up at the beginning because they didn't really explain it. There's only two people on I think it's Next Generation that don't get promoted throughout the show. Might be three. Because Geordi gets promoted.
Yeah. He gets
Data
promoted
has
to
never
junior
been promoted
grade.
during the whole time. Actually, Data
stayed the same.
Data's the only Star Trek character that has not been promoted out of the Generation era, the Next Generation era.
True. Even Troy got promoted.
Troy got promoted. Crusher got promoted, even though it was an alternate universe. She eventually is promoted.
Worf got promoted.
Worf got
Yeah,
promoted.
Generations.
Yeah, Worf got promoted.
Even on the series in the first season, he was a lieutenant junior grade.
Yep, and then Tatsu died, and he became a lieutenant. And then technically, he was given a waiver. He was given a waiver when I read it somewhere. Worf's character was because he's not supposed to be able to take that position on a ship that size without being a lieutenant commander. But Picard, because Picard is the flagship, Picard can waive it. He can say, "I want that guy," and nobody got. And that guy, whoever he picks, is on a trajectory to be a lieutenant commander, which is what happened with Worf. And literally, 5 years later, which for the time that Worf was in the military or in the fleet, he actually got promoted pretty fast. From the time you see him as a brand new JG, he's a lieutenant commander by 1994. The show that's 7 years. That's really quick because those positions are log jammed.
Yet not as quick as Captain Kirk in the JJ movie.
And in that era of Starfleet, in both eras that he's in, he goes from cadet to captain, which is absurd. But hey, it was fun.
It was the same thing with Tilly last year when she's an ensign and Burnham's like, "Oh, you're gonna be my first officer." I'm like, dude, I love the show, but come on, you're not gonna make an ensign your first officer.
But no.
You're not, but I could see her being the command. She wasn't on her own, she wasn't there were still people there, but those people weren't on the command trajectory. You see what I mean? What's Detmer? There was some they were acting why are certain people wear certain colors because their current branch is operations, but they can change to a red shirt when the time comes if they've had the command training. And that's another thing that they've done with the colors. I like the fact in Discovery that they brought the colors back, that to the actual branch colors, because those are always important to me. Even with the uniform that you're wearing right now, the branch colors were still visible.
I'm old school though. Like I always keep thinking, I just wish they'd flip it back that gold was command again. I'm always like, why did they flip that, man?
I forgot when somebody explained it to me.
It probably just was Patrick Stewart looked better in red. It's probably nothing more than that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the guy who didn't even want the job originally.
He couldn't do the
icon. Because the way the uniform in the red shirt always dies, but now except unless it's Scotty. Scotty never dies, and Scotty was down there doing stuff that he should have been on the ship at all times. But yeah, it would have been. It would have been different to see how they would have handled it, but that was the 60s. Kirk rose to captain. Actually, Kirk and Picard rose to captain fast.
True.
Neither one of them were ever a commander.
He was captain of the Stargazer quick.
Yep.
Yeah, he was captain of the Stargazer because that commander got killed, but he was a lieutenant at the time. Same thing with Kirk. Kirk went from lieutenant to captain in the original canon. Kirk goes from lieutenant to captain, and so does Picard. Picard, because he's got Crusher as his first officer. And he's promoted to captain. And I remember if you read, what are the books with Calhoun, Mackenzie Calhoun?
Oh, the Excalibur.
Yeah,
New Frontier.
Yeah, it's a lieutenant. Because he's still lieutenant at the time, even though he's in command of the Stargate. He comes down and recruits Calhoun to be in the Starfleet. And Starfleet, I like those books actually. Peter David wrote those. Those are fun. I got the figure for him too with his sword. But yeah, there's a lot of Star Trek out there for everybody who's new to the game. Welcome to the game. All you people that weren't watching it before, welcome.
Yeah.
Old Trek fan that almost suffocated us all. Welcome back. There's enough room for you at the table now. Without, you don't have to shut down my Trek to get your Trek. And you don't, that's what it was, because we had such little territory that we were like, I got to move my Trek out here. This won't happen. If that's stupid. They're never doing this. And that was the time, because you only had one TV spot at a time, unless you were overlapping the ending shows to the beginning. So when Voyager's ending, here comes Enterprise. When Voyager's starting, there was only time where you had them overlapping for a good length of time, because Voyager and DS9 overlapped for years, but they were in such different parts of space it didn't matter. So, and then we went to that in 2004 to 2016. That was the dark era.
And I love the fact that they find ways to make them different. Like Strange New World is going to be episodic.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, Discovery is Starship-based Star Trek that is in a different era and serialized. And then we're going to get one that's set in a different era and is episodic. So it's like, it's not like you're just giving us the same thing. You're giving us something a little different.
Exactly. There's something for everybody now. And people were mad at Paramount Plus because they ended the deal with Netflix and all that. I'm like, okay, that's growing pains. They want you where all their content is. It's the focal point of what they're doing. With Star Trek is the most popular IP on there right now, besides CSI.
True.
It would be a terrible business move to not do that. You don't want your valuable IP on your competitor's service. And people said Paramount was being greedy, and I always say,
business
no,
is, man.
I'm always like, no, they're not being greedy. If you want their very expensive to produce content and not pay for it, you're the one being greedy. I mean, they're putting the money out to this.
They're paying the bill. So I understood what I think they could have done it a little bit smoother, a little bit more planning, a little bit more. To me, everything is about packaging and communication. If you can communicate that I'm about to shit on your forehead, if I'm straight with you, like Roosevelt said, people can take bad news if you give it to them straight. If they would have communicated that a little bit better and told people this is what we're trying to do, instead it was abrupt right before the season started. That was like, wow, I can't even help defend you guys right now. I understand, but I understand what they're saying now, because you got people all over the world, and we fought so hard to get people to like the new Trek. We got people who love the new Trek, and now we can't get them the product. That wasn't a good look. I understood what they were doing 100%. They needed to do it better, and they needed to foreplan. They needed to let me know, okay, months in advance, you're going to, so that we transition. Because if I love the show, I'm going to find the show. And they had a workaround now with Tubi, but now you have to watch it live for some people if they're not here in the States or in certain areas. But that'll change. But that was the only thing that they did I didn't like, is that, because it was a bad look, and it pissed off people that they already had on their side. We're not talking about 2004 where you had to try to convince Old Trek to come over. These are people who love your show and are excited about your show. You don't want to give them that, True. So I'm glad it's eventually getting worked out. But, I love Discovery. I cannot wait for Strange New Worlds. Picard, I'm a little iffy on. I think it's a high quality show, but I need Q to fix some shit. Okay. Yeah. Q, I got a list of things I need you to fix, Q.
Make it snappy.
And first of all, the Geppetto Picard versus the Soul that I hope is the one that you're talking to, and then you merge those two and do whatever. I really want to see Worf this season. I'm ecstatic. I get to see Guinan. I want to know more about Guinan. I really want to know more about the Q. Listen, the mystery's gone on for long enough. I want to know if my theory about the Q is right, and that they are the most advanced form of humans that will ever exist. And the reason why Q is always interfering in mankind, usually, if you notice, he does it when we're about to run into some stuff that we won't be able to handle. Q. The Borg were coming to the Alpha Quadrant no matter what. That's now that we know all about the Borg, we know that they were coming to the.
They were hinted in the Neutral Zone, the first season finale.
Exactly, when the
missing colony, yeah.
So we knew that the Borg were coming. Him bringing them into the Delta Quadrant to confront them, even though it cost the lives of 18 Starfleet members, it allowed them during the interim time between that episode and Best of Both Worlds
to get ready,
and that's what saved them. that, and all good things that are about to wipe out mankind. He always intervenes, annoyingly or not, in areas to where mankind's about to be wiped out or something is about to happen. So I'm thinking that he's preserving what his race will become. I think we evolve into what Q is. Millions of years down the line, but time means nothing to him because he can travel in time. He's omnipotent. But
Well, that would make sense for the trial itself.
yeah, the trial says the trial never ends. He's like, because we never end. And he's fixated on mankind. Of all the species out there that he could be fixated on, he's fixated on us. Those species don't have to exist for him to exist, but mankind does. So I want to know if my theory, I want to know what Guinan is to the point where he was the least bit bothered by her when he saw him for the first time. Remember she does this?
Yeah,
Like,
why was she afraid of the El-Orion? Like,
yeah, you can make planets disappear. Why did you flinch when she came at you? And I want to know what he meant she was. These are things that, and like I said, we still have these actors with us. So let's tell these stories, man. So I'm excited for that. It's a cool time to be a Trek fan. So, hey, Joe. Hey, man. Joe, next time Joe's on, dude, we all have to be suited up next time.
oh yeah,
I have one uniform, and it's a weird one. Remember Universal Studios Florida used to have those videos you can make where they'd superimpose you
Yeah.
into, and they had those the maroon uniforms from the movies, and you would put them on, and they had a Velcro in the back.
Oh yeah, dude. That next time.
After the Universal shut that down, one of those uniforms ended up on eBay, and I have one.
nice.
Dude, so we all need to be suited up next time.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up here in about 5 minutes or so. We did 2.5 hours talking about Star Trek, man.
Yeah,
This has
there
been
you
so
go.
much fun. Thanks for coming on, Joe. He had sent me a picture of him in 1993. Do you mind if I show that? real
Oh
quick?
yeah. I
All
was a
right.
lot thinner and had more hair.
I gotta see this.
Let's see.
I'll give you the backstory. My local library got word that I had a big collection of Star Trek memorabilia, and they asked if they could put it on display in the library.
Oh wow, that dude Vince says he has a link to my Trek speech.
Let's see.
Wow. How old are you here?
Oh geez, how old am I? That would be like the beginning of my senior year of high school.
Oh wow.
Wait a minute.
So
Well, you said 83 or 93?
93.
Okay, I'm about to say. That's impossible. Because you told me you were 45, right?
Yeah.
I'm about to say, dude, that's some serious Noxema. That's what's looking good that good from 1983 till now.
I like all the TV guides, man. That's cool.
I have some of those TV guides. I have some of that stuff on there.
Yeah,
I
so
need-
I
I need to
was, oh my God, I was 16 in this.
Yeah, because I was 1993. I just joined the Army. I just graduated the year before, and I joined on delayed entry and came back to Vegas. And I ended up here. But
Heck yeah.
all right, yeah, 2.5 hours of talking Trek.
Dude, this is a lot of fun. Oh, I know. We'll have to do it when I don't have to get up early the next tomorrow. I gotta go to bed right after this, so all that fun stuff.
I'm afraid to click on any other links because I know what's going to be being talked about today. And I think I'm going to
Yeah, so
I'm gonna
exhausting.
I'm going to go hide under the covers for this one because I don't think I have anything to add to anything else but Trek today. So I'm going to just keep it.
I'm with you.
Because just the chat alone is like, oh, I could feel it in my pocket burning. I'm like, oh, my phone's on fire, and then I'm like, okay, let's talk Trek.
Right.
So like I said, there's Trek is at a place right now to where several different conversations can be had. And I didn't in 2005. I did not think that was ever going to be the case again. I didn't think we'd ever get Trek on TV again. I didn't think a company would want to take a flyer on such fans who at the time were just, we want to burn it down. We would rather burn down all of Trek than have this what we don't like on the
Then
internet.
have something.
Yeah,
No.
and
But
I'm
we
like,
still, unfortunately, we still have fans like that, though. I think they're not the minority, though, because
Doomcock. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry,
we still have them
hack
now, but
something up.
they're not the ones that generate the viewership now. Before
No, that's true.
they were the ones that generated the viewership. Now they are a voice. They are still out there, but it's guys like us who are like, you starved me for 12 years. without Trek. Now I'm like, I'm never going to treat Trek like that again.
A lot of
Never.
these guys want to tell you that these new shows are failing, that they're a complete failure. You don't make an expensive series like Discovery and do a 4th season if it's failing. You're making a profit.
You don't do a
Yeah.
spin-off.
Oh yeah. Exactly. No business compounds failure like that.
Yeah, it's not, especially Paramount, who's got to be pretty careful with what they spend, because they're trying to make themselves an attractive assets for somebody to purchase. So Star Trek is a big part of that. And you can see how many people watch the show because when they had it taken away from them, all these people around the world were like, "Holy shit, what'd you just do?" So
Exactly.
how valuable something is, how much it means when you take it away. And then we're like, Ireland. I didn't know the fuck you guys were watching Star Trek in Ireland. And then some guy typed in on one of the things, and the characters were a different language altogether. And I'm like, you're watching this shit in Punjabi in India? I mean, they're watching this all over the world. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not failure. That's all over the world. People are watching it wherever they can. So yeah, people are always want to tell you it's failure, and then the whole social justice thing. And I'm like, okay, welcome to Star Trek, because that's been social justice since in one form or another since the 60s.
That's how I learned it, guys.
And dealing with the Cold War, it was social justice.
It's been woke since.
Wait a minute. The show that had the first interracial kiss suddenly got politically correct.
And
when did this happen? a Russian at the helm of a Starfleet ship, sitting next to a Chinese person, or was supposed to be Chinese, because Sulu is, I think, Chinese, even though he's Japanese. But we have the two biggest Cold War enemies that we had in 1967 sitting next to each other on the starship. And then in the height of the civil rights era, you have a Lieutenant Uhura,
a black woman
right
as
there.
a communications officer.
You got an alien as your first officer, and you got blue people, you got everybody in there, and no, yeah, it's been, if you want to, I hate the term woke, because I think the term woke has been misused. The term woke, it's anything that certain segments of society don't want to deal with, but people who are from those societies have to deal with it every day. If dealing with racism, as far as being black, the guys who say woke generally will never have to deal with that. The guy who says woke is not dealing with it, being an immigrant or third generation person from a faraway place. So when you say woke, you're kind of discounting the journeys of all these people that can commonly meet in one place. I understand people use it for motives and stuff like that, and sometimes stories are hijacked. But Star Trek is the story. If you tune into Star Trek, that is Star Trek. That's like saying tune into Star Trek without starships, or space or aliens. It's just it's as much as part of Star Trek as any of those things. So
baked right into the DNA of it.
Yeah, and so I'm happy because they were representation in science fiction before anybody knew what representation in science fiction was. My dad will tell you, they did not have representation during his era. They just didn't have it. You didn't have representation as black folks for the most part on anything mainstream like that. It was Sidney Poitier, Bill Cosby, and you had to stretch to find other people. Star Trek put them right in your living room, prime time. That just wasn't happening. So I'm happy Star Trek did that. Now you look at it, it's like, it's got everything. It's continued. It's continued. I mean, some of the characters, are dealing with things that a lot of people are dealing with, gender, things that are people are dealing with today. But if we had gender issues back in the 60s and 70s, like we had now, they would have been dealing with it then, because they would want to include everybody so that everybody could enjoy their show. And that's just what Gene, the greatest gift Gene Roddenberry gave to entertainment was Star Trek, because it makes us in this normal world look like fools for not being able to deal with it in the magical way that Star Trek does. But it's not magic; it's just coexistence.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that we're here and that he did it. So, all right, we're at 2:33. So I'm gonna bolt and wrap up.
Sounds
this,
good, y'all.
And Joe, next time, gotta have a uniform on. Don't even let him on if he ain't suited up in that suit that he just told us about. Don't let him on.
I think it's epic, man. I'm so happy you were able to join us, Joe. This is really good.
Thanks for having me.
I'm hoping to make this like a weekly thing, especially with the Star Trek run-in right now. So
yeah,
it'll be
when the show comes back in February, and then after Strange New World, we're gonna have tons of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I've been wanting to do for a while anyway. So this is perfect. I'm so glad that we all finally got to do this. I'm looking forward to more. I think I'll send this off with the clip from Lower Decks, and then we'll take off. All right, here we go.
Those guys had a long road getting from there to here. Give me warp in the factor of 5, 6, 7, 8.
There you go.
That's hilarious.
That was the end of season 1. It was the best ever because she was giving him crap about, why don't you go do your thing with the Enterprise crew? And he's like, oh, it's been a long road getting from there to here. I was like, oh no.
Did you ever see the YouTube videos where somebody figured out that you could take the theme song from Enterprise and the theme song from Perfect Strangers and they're interchangeable? Like you can, oh no, oh God, I'm blanking on it now. Standing tall on the wings of our dreams.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'll get you on, man. All right. So everyone take it easy. I don't have an outro video, so we'll just hit the end.